Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the AML after a week-long hiatus for us Americans to eat our turkey, fill our bellies with stuffing, and some of the sociopaths on planet Earth, Jack, to eat those cranberries. Yuck. I hate those things, but like I said, we are here for another Aegis stream, and this time with the quarter-finals after the round of 16 and that week-long break that I mentioned. It is going to be Stasis Gaming Resurgence versus WiWiWi Cat. A little bit of a dead meme there, but it was very alive at the start of the split. And I am joined by not Mr. Toki B. He was not feeling well, unfortunately, but Jack, a fellow color caster. What you doing here, Jack? You're a color. You're play-by-playing?
I am here by any means necessary to reclaim my place in the AML. Like it's how I started this year, and I'm back. But just to help out, you know, I love you guys and what you're doing on the AML, and I'm happy to get to cast this series in particular because we've got Stasis Gaming Resurgence, who have just completely run through this split, undefeated match record. They've been good the previous two splits as well, and able to add on talent, maintain talent. And for WiWiWi Cats, it's kind of just the true-minded gamer squad that won a previous Aegis split and then promoted up here with the new bot lane. So I see a lot of people downplaying WiWiWi Cats and their ability, but this is a group that's core has won a championship in Aegis, so I wouldn't play it.
For sure. I mean, these are players that have proven themselves time and time again. And let's get those players on the screen right now, starting with Stasis Gaming Resurgence, who, Jack, like you said, undefeated in series, only lost 2 games across the entire regular season. It's Hazem, Mags, Exodia, Bobby, and Marcotte here for the players. And yeah, I mean, we recognize a lot of these guys, even if you're not familiar with Aegis and you watch things such as Titan, you watch things such as Blue Water, you maybe even watch things such as Risen. These guys have been around for a good amount of time, that these should be names that you have at least seen once, and names that you know can go super far. And this is a team definitely poised to potentially win it all, and standing in their way is a 4th seed. And Jack, whenever we see these matches where it's a 1st seed of a team that has, you know, dominated the regular split versus a team like WiWiWi Cat, who kind of struggled their way through the regular season, barely slipped in standings wise, a lot of people assume this will be a 3-0. You'd be forgiven for thinking that, but those who know see that WiWiWi Cat actually have defeated a 1st seed in the round of 16. They took down DDG Genesis in 3-1 fashion, so they might just be the David to some of these Goliaths in the AML.
Yeah, and because you see, as you mentioned, DDG, they, at least the org, not those players, but the org is the reigning AML champions, and they come into this round of 16 getting knocked off by fellow champions. But I think the comparison I'd like to make from WiWiWi and Stasis Gaming is the bones of their rosters throughout the course of this year have stayed pretty consistent. Stasis Gaming, obviously, their jungler and their support have been with the team for at least 2 splits, and that type of synergy is really important. They've put in Bobby, who was a substitute last split in the AML. Exodia comes in. Hazem is just a monster in the top lane, but WiWiWi has their own monster in Night Ravens, who has been like dominating up the elo ladder throughout these leagues. Conceit has 2 splits under his belt, and then they bring in the new player this split, Rainy Daz, and you know, they're one of the highest ranked players on the roster coming in, and their champ pool, I think, is really excellent because they play everything that's good. And when you're in this high elo comp situation, you have to have that wide champion pool, have all of the options open to you, especially when you're coming into a new team and that synergy might not be there right away.
And let's get those other names up on the screen right here. WiWiWi Cat, we've been staring at the Stasis Gaming members for a good amount of time now. But yeah, last time we saw this team was, I believe it was week number 2, Jack, and they had a extremely close series. But I think one major takeaway was Pengu and was Night Raven. Night Raven really was a player that a lot of people, the casters and the people watching specifically, were really excited about, and one someone who I think is extremely good, particularly in the laning phase, and very good in side laning as well. Has that macro sense on when to push his advantage in a side and when to back off, pulls attention away from the rest of his team so they can grab resources, but also allows them to get some of those cross maps. So looking forward to this top lane matchup. You mentioned how Hazem has been a huge staple for this team, has been one of the most consistent top laners around this elo bracket. Night Raven, I think, is definitely going to give him a run for his money. As there we go. There are the players finally up on your screen. And yeah, I feel like looking at the standings of these teams, you would think this could be a 3-0, maybe a 3-1, but I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, Jack, if it does go all the way because of the caliber of teams we have had to play in the past and how they have overcome them, most importantly.
Yeah, and I love your emphasis on this top lane matchup. It's my matchup to watch. Hazem and Night Ravens, these are two top laners that their play style is so similar in the best way for us as fans, because there are no tanks to be seen except for Sion, and they're building him like a fighter. This is going to be a just cinematic experience to watch these two top laners go at it. And as well as the jungle matchup, I was going back and forth because Mags and Conceit both have experience. They both have very unique but deep champion pools. And I mean, Conceit this year has played 1,962 solo queue games on just his main account. And it's not all super meta stuff. He's got the Udyr, who's almost certainly going to see bans throughout the series. The Karthus is extremely practiced. So going up against Mags, who's mostly sticking to dive champs, I think that Conceit is going to be able to find a lot of great matchups in his pool to the very stock standard picks that we're going to see out of Mags, the Wukongs, the Jarvans, the Xin Zhaos, etc.
Absolutely. And it does sound like what I am hearing from our producers, draft is up and ready to go. So we are ready here. And yeah, I mean, emphasis on the jungle matchup, emphasis on the top lane matchup, but those are traditionally what we see in the first pick department, Jack. Oftentimes the junglers, if you see a jungler first picked, it's going to be one of the big fighters, such as the Wukong, such as the Xin Zhao, such as the Pantheon, even that's fallen a little bit out of flavor and favor, but is still really, really strong with that Grand Starfall. But even those, I think, kind of are taken into second place when considering the mid laners right now. Orianna particularly has been probably the most famous and popular first pick in the entire meta across all elos, I would assume, right now. So I do think the emphasis is here on WiWiCats with the red side, where they are going to have to take away some of these mid laners that are not only, preferable for a player like Exodia, such as the Syndra that you can see on your screen, but also just some of these really solid first picks that can link up with your jungler and really create a win con out of thin air.
Yeah, and the Syndra ban has to come through. Exodia, 152 games, 57% win rate this year alone. And as you mentioned, the Orianna as well dominates anytime it's selected, and people mentioned the ball delivery system. But with the type of junglers that are meta right now, they're all divers. They're all going in, locking you down at least a single target. So you kind of always have that mechanism. I think of things like the Talia as well, something you could first pick realistically, get it out of the way for the rest of the series. And I know in AML specifically, there's a lot of Hui prio that comes in, so that could be seen. I like what WiWiWi is doing. I wouldn't be banning junglers here either. Like I said, Conceit has an extremely deep pool. You're going to find good matchups wherever wherever they pick the jungle. So go a bit deeper into the bag. The Senna ban coming through, a bit in line with Bobby. He loves these long-range champs, and he loves caster champs. So being the second highest rated player in the entire AML, I like the idea of game one coming out and targeting him right away.
Yeah, Bobby, I think, has been a really good player, and not only is he good at carrying, but I also feel like this guy is just good at generally being able to fill whatever niche or whatever role you need him to, and I think that's the mark of a really great player. The versatility aspect of some of these AML prospects can really be the difference between a successful game, a successful, game 4, game 5, or a not successful game 4, game 5. A lot of these teams tend to crack if their champion pools are, kind of delved delved in too deep, where you don't have the practice on some of these characters. So I think Bobby is one such case where you can put him on anything. You can give him whatever champion that is required, and he will be okay doing it. Obviously, that's a little bit later into the series, as we are still here on game number 1, thinking about games 4 and 5. But WiWiWi Cat's final ban going to be the Wukong, and I was going to mention this being a possibility, as I think this is probably except for Orianna, Wukong is probably the most favorable B1 champion still up and available, with that Ambessa being taken away. Now, though, it's just going to be Stasis Gaming immediately snagging up that Jax, and I do want to call attention to this being possibly a flex over to Mags. He could throw it in the jungle, but it is just about what we have said so many times, where Hasm versus Night Raven really is the matchup we're paying attention to.
Yeah, it's also a takeaway. Night Raven's top 2 play champions are Jax and Ambessa, both gone for this game. Jax now gone for the series. I like the Mel response. Another potential flex, now not going ADC, obviously, with Sivir, could be support still, but those nerfs that came out on this patch for playing on 23 really did hinder the support Mel play and really helped the mid lane with that extra damage on passive. And the further nerfs coming next patch to the snare on E are only going to make it more used in the mid lane. But I like that emphasis right away. Ratchet ADC last split comes in the mid lane this split, so sticking to stuff maybe more in the wheelhouse. But the Orianna goes over. You have the flexible Jax for Stasis Gaming. It really feels like right away they're getting all they want, and if they can pick up here, maybe just, you don't want to kill the flex, but if you want to pick your entire top side, grab Sion. I know it's not Hasm's favorite, but you would have a crazy team comp game 1.
And I kind of feel like Jax isn't the greatest ball delivery system, so I wouldn't hate if Stasis Gaming just kind of decide, hey, we're going to wait here to reveal where this Jax is going and just go for an 80 carry. I think it would be good to give Bobby something before they can reduce that champion pool even further. So they are going to go for the Kai'Sa. And right out of the gate, it seems like Stasis Gaming are just looking to be an engage comp. They're looking to go in. They're willing to send Bobby in with that ultimate and allow him to really free hit in a lot of these fights, be up in the face of, some of these longer range carries, such as the nerf to Mel, like you mentioned, Jax, and the Sivir. So I think closing that distance is going to be the big challenge here for SGR, and probably a theme of what we'll see here on 4-5. Meanwhile, though, WiWiWi Cat either going to throw themselves something in the jungle or going to pair up something with the Sivir. Pairings for Sivir that I think are generally really good. I think Braum is decent here. I think Alistar is decent here. Anything that can disengage things like the Jax and the Kai'Sa from being able to rain fire in a lot of these fights, I think provides a ton of value, and just getting them away from your backline, who is very immobile at the current moment.
Yeah, and I also have another option written down. No, we're going to grab Malphite now. All right, here's our prediction, both of our minds. They're going to ban Sylas. Let's just grab that, clock that one down. I had Karma written down. Kai'Sa is my favorite champ, struggles in lane against double ranged, and if you had that Mel Karma Sivir backline, it's going to be really hard to dive, which is exactly what Stasis Gaming want to do. How do you stick on them when they're Mantra E'd, when they're snaring you, running backwards? But the Malphite grabbed now, what that tells me is they're pretty sure that it's either Jax top or it's going to be an 80 Bruiser top. And it also tells me that they have pivoted at least a little bit in their philosophy, because they see the Kai'Sa Jax. They know that Stasis Gaming have to dive. So they're saying, okay, we want to have some tools of our own to either stop you in your tracks or, beat you to the punch and dive on you. And another thing I want to jump in as we look at these bans, support bans focused for the side of WiWiWi and top end jungle potentially for the side of Stasis, or you know what I mean. But the Kai'Sa champ for Bobby, when you have a player that is so good, giving them a champion that has agency is really important, as the Nico is going to get picked up. Another double ranged matchup really pushes the Kai'Sa under turret, immediately grabs Rel. I just want to say, Bobby having a champ where he can kind of make his own plays, I think could be really great for Stasis.
Absolutely. I think Bobby is really going to be the main thing that we're going to have to keep our eyes on here so far for Stasis Gaming Resurgence, but I kind of feel like it's the only thing at the current moment. Like, obviously Jax is going to be able to be considered a late game threat, but against this comp, I struggle to feel like there are ways for Hasm to be super effective. We talked about that side lane and how much him and Night Raven like to interact around that aspect of top lane, but I do feel like there's so much wave clear on the side of WiWiWi Cats that it doesn't matter. And it's going to be a Jax top lane against the Malphite, and Ivern going to be the choice here for Meg. So looking to go full supportive mode into Bobby and Hasm, the two players that we highlighted in this draft for SGR. The real execution, the tip of the spear here for this comp and what has made them so successful in the regular season. Now WiWiWi Cats, really, it's tough to find an answer here. You've got a ton of engage, or you got a decent amount of engage here. You have a lot of AoE, but I feel like the damage department has a little bit more to be desired, particularly in those early phases. So they are going to try and bandage that a little bit, with the Xin Zhao, who obviously does have the ability to get some of these late game threats going a tad bit earlier. And I do feel like that is much needed. But at the same time, Jack, I just can't help but feel that the SGR comp, looking at it on paper, feels a bit more well-rounded outside of the Sivir and the Mel, who are going to be free hitting. It's going to be really difficult to get onto them. I think if SGR can find creative ways into the backline, it should just be a wipe, frankly. I feel like you've got the scaling on your side, and most importantly, you just have that protection for the Kai'Sa. It doesn't matter if Bobby is in the backline or he's diving into 5. There's so many tools in SGR's wheelhouse to keep him alive and keep him fighting that WiWiWi Cats, I feel like, are going to really struggle to take down this guy.
Yeah, and as we hop onto the Rift, I think important to note some of these win rates I want to point out. Now, Nico has been an extremely strong champion in all high leagues, but here in the AML, has a win-loss of 9 wins, 24 losses.
Holy.
So not seeing the type of success here at AML that it has in other leagues. Meanwhile, Ivern is 7-1. And I think that comes down to, if you don't know how to play Ivern, as Ratchet gets hit by the Q immediately, if you don't know how to play Ivern, you're probably not playing it. Because it's a very... Yeah. Your whole team has to kind of understand at least a little bit how you're going to function and path as it's unique to your champion. Whereas WiWiWi, I had a thought late in that draft, what if they take this Malphite that has been buffed in the jungle and flex it to try and get a good matchup top lane? They end up with last pick Xin Zhao, one of the most anticlimactic final picks I think there possibly could have been. But now... I
absolutely agree with you.
It's going to be really important for WiWiWi to utilize these winning lanes to try and get some advantage early, because if Sivir and Mel can't get into this game, that damage profile looks quite weak.
Absolutely does. And I think at the start of the game here, we're expecting a lot of priority to be gained simply by WiWiWi Cats as champions. You've got the double range in the bot lane. You've got the Mel in the mid lane, who obviously is just going to be able to poke out the Orianna from afar. So this does create maybe some opportunities for Conceit to look aggressively into Megs' jungle. But like you said, a lot of people don't understand how Ivern works, especially those who are playing against Ivern. I feel like it's a very rare matchup where you're actually going against this champion, and so Conceit has to be really decisive and dig a little deep into his Ivern knowledge, because the timers to punish this champion are not well known, and they are actually very few and far between, particularly in the early phases.
Yeah, and with these pushing lanes that they'll have expected to have, there are angles for you to push in, steal some camps, and even just make life difficult for the Ivern who expends health and mana to secure these camps. It is going to have to be a team effort, though, because if just Xin Zhao walks in, Ivern is just going to send that Rucaller to another camp and zoom out of there. But I think if anyone can do it, it's Conceit. Like I said, nearly 2,000 games played. A chunk of those has to be against Ivern. He's got to have at least a little bit of experience against the tree, who now
he's already done with his clear, by the way.
Cleared his entire camps and is looking for a deep ward. He's wrapping around right now, and Marcotte is getting in position as well. The Shattering Strike will land onto Pengu, still has that spell shield, but is going to expend it and flash as well to get out of the way. Kai'Sa's about half HP, means they couldn't join this fight earlier. Rainy Daz is low, but Marcotte walks up a bit too far. If that Boomerang Blade is available...
Ooh.
Dicky has to flash out of the way. We'll be pretty even at the end of the day. Had about, 3 summoners spells for WiWiWi. in exchange for Rel's summoner profile, but having that Hex Slash means pretty good gank all around for SGR.
Actually a pretty good outcome, particularly for Conceit, because SGR more or less overchased for those kills, dropped the wave. That meant that the priority was there for the Xin Zhao to secure the crap. So he's actually going to be able to pull one up over the Ivern, who will be waiting a fair amount of time for his camps to respawn. This means that he'll have a lot of downtime. And you look at the wave states right now, there isn't a lot for the Ivern to actually accomplish. So I think overall, WiWiWi Cats being able to push off of that play, being able to make it so nobody goes down is a net positive for them, simply because this bot lane combo of Pengu and Rainy Daz, they're not looking to go for these 2v2s. They are looking to stall for as long as possible and not feed this Kai'Sa.
Yeah, and you look now, Ivern going for another gank onto mid lane. Mel obviously has the rebuttal, so it'd be very difficult to land a root onto that champion. And the good thing you pointed out about Ivern is because he clears his camps so quickly, it means that they take longer to respawn on that first back. So you're not going to be able to just open back up 2 camps. Does get that top scuttle crab, and now has his top side respawning. But he had a very good clear, saved his smite for red buff and Krug so he could clear them immediately, walked forward to the Grubs early as Rainy Daz gets a snare to land, followed up by the Mel snare. This is already execute range. One more auto will do it, and first blood goes over to Ratchet's Mel.
Yeah, Ratchet being able to get the execute off. Exodia having to burn his own flash as well, which means that there is potential for potentially a revisit by either Conceit or Rainy Daz into the mid lane. And now you can see the Nico helping the Mel shove in the wave. So Ratchet's actually going to get a really valuable reset off here and doesn't lose a ton as a result. Meanwhile, bot lane, no real punish available for SGR, but there might be something on the top side, as every time we pan there, Hasm is just looking for some opportunity to chunk out this Mal fight, but Rock does not care.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you somewhere in the back of Night Raven's mind, all he's thinking is, I can't wait for next game, dude. I can't believe I'm playing Malphite. Just in this first matchup, there's that opportunity to see that fist fight that we were talking about, and he's on a tank. But he's doing his job. He's not dying. He's getting as much CS as possible and staying relatively even in a matchup where he's essentially forced to have 0 mana to keep himself alive, and Jax has so many angles as it looks like we're having another 3v3 bot. Nico does spot it out, and Mags is just going to walk through, shield himself, and root the Xin Zhao. No real options there. I mean, this bot lane is playing it so smart. As you mentioned, Rainy Daz understanding how much control and wave clear they have compared to this SGR bot lane. So roams mid, gets a kill for Ratchet, and really unlocking this map as we have our first dragon, and it looks like priority is shifting towards it.
Exodia, though, does have a temporary opportunity to go in and maybe go to this bot side river, but Megs crucially was on the reset to get those Ionian boots, so he's not going to be around to truly contested for this objective. It does open up a potential cross-map play. You can see the Ivern, because again, he doesn't have any of those camps on the bot side. Maybe looks for a steal on the red buff, or maybe even looks for something onto Night Raven just to try and burn that flash and give Hasm more opportunities to continue looking aggressively and have it actually matter, because all the time that Hasm has spent trying to chunk out this rock, it hasn't mattered. He can just alter flash away. You don't actually have kill threat on this champion in the lane, no matter how many times you hit him. Yeah,
and very good sense there from Night Ravens. I thought they might overextend themselves, but felt something was wrong. Knew that the Ivern must be around, and they do call for the lane swap. Very good timing. Just got Dragon. Literally just got it, so now you shift top lane. Grugs in 15 seconds. Good response here, though, from SGR. I worry about the champs that they have right now. Sivir is one of the best hyperscalers because they can provide so much AoE damage early around these grub fight and dragon fights. And having this bottom lane that's been so dominant continue to be matched up against the Kai'Sa Mel, it just, almost again ensures that we're going to have an uncontested objective go over. But Mags, really insistent, wants to try and get either a pick or just continue to establish.
He has a rebuttal.
Position. Ratchet is going to get jump scared right now, rebuts that root caller, though. Good response there, and two grubs have already gone over to WiWiWi, and I mean, I really don't see an angle here for SGR to get in there.
And it's really hard for SGR to actually start up those grubs. Even if they did have the priority, Ivern is notoriously slow at taking that objective. Even with Daisy, it takes him a very long time to actually take down only one grub. So this just gives WiWiWi the opening to say, hey, we know Ivern can't really steal these away. We know we also have the swap in top lane. And just generally, the setup is better, but now Marcotte is being focused onto.
I mean, it has the ability to get back onto the horse. Has to use heal, though. I think this might be just enough damage and CC to get them down. Pengu, in the end, will get it. It was the heal expended once again. And I think that might have been part of their strategy, giving over that final grub to SGR. They go back, get some camps, and then as Rel's trying to reestablish some vision, gets caught out in the river, and the kill goes exactly where you want it, into Sivir's pocket, halfway done with the call, and they are starting to ramp up against a team that really has to be winning these team fights to get ahead in the game.
You really have to be pushing the pace of the game. I agree with you, especially in the case of this Jax, who really hasn't found much success. Obviously, he's got a decent top lane CS lead over the Malphite, but I feel like this just matters so little against a champion like Malphite, who inherently is low econ. His only job, realistically, is to press that R button. He doesn't need money in order to do that. So I feel like the gold that Jax is getting just isn't enough to really turn the tide when this mid game is around the corner. And so WiWiWi are just kind of playing this game slowly. They are making sure the pace of the game doesn't run away from them, and SGR, because of that, aren't able to accelerate any of these win cons.
Yeah, and it goes to show you the philosophy and the confidence of WiWiWi. They pick the Malphite before the Jax flex is revealed and pretty much dare them to play it top lane. And again, we mentioned the flex Malphite in the jungle could have matched it anyway, but they essentially dare Hasm to play his most played champ top into a counter and then just pull it off anyway and say, okay, you know, we dared you, you played into it. I mean, Mag's second highest played champ is the Jax, so easily could have put it into the jungle. And now you're seeing it's actually even gold in the top lane. So, you know, Malphite's job might be simple, but it can get even easier when they have a ton of tank items in their inventory and are just this unkillable rock that hurts you to hurt him. And now you're seeing that HP lead start to pay off, as now Malphite's the one doing the pushing.
Okay, here we go.
Going in, pops that ultimate, trying to get as much damage down as possible, but Night Raven still has not expended that unstoppable force and will use it just to get out. But you know, that goes to show you that's where this matchup is headed.
Hang on, though. Mags is rounding around the corner, maybe looking to punish him. Does pop the Daisy, cancels the recall. All right, Night Raven.
Doesn't even have to do anything. Daisy is going to handle all the work. Flash will be expended, and very low HP is... Oh, Night Raven, but the turret shot comes through. Now it's just about get as much CS as you possibly can, and it will be the kill in the end for Mags as the turret ramps down. And it was sketchy, but they did pull off that dive. Unfortunately, the kill does go on to Ivern, but that just means, you know, redemption coming soon.
It does, but I feel like because of that, you also surrender a lot of priority around this top side. And WiWiWi, this will be their third objective, so they're going to get the feat of Dragon Slaying. All they need is one more kill to get the new fancy Gucci shoes on their members, and that is just such a valuable thing to have, especially this early into the game. It almost feels like a mental gap, Jack. You know how a lot of people like to talk about that and throw that term around, you know, get double crab, mental gap in the jungle, Cole complete mental gap in the AD carry role. I feel like season 15 2025, the mental gap is feats.
Absolutely, and especially I think it was right around mid-season as Rainy Dez tries to prevent this freeze that's going to happen no matter what. Once the new feats Swifty boots came in and you were able to get so much adaptive force just from being fast, as we do see Rainy Dez get their back stopped, that actually is going to be quite meaningful if they want to pull off any swaps or roams.
Ratchet may be pushing up too far.
Yeah, always the remote on time means the root caller won't come through. And you know, Ivern, one thing I love that Mags did is went and got that Dark Seal very early. I think it's an underrated item in the jungle, but got the 2 stacks, really not able to do much with it. And with those feats, with the safe lanes that they do have, the only kill being that very sketchy but successful dive in the top side, WiWiWi is getting everything they drafted for, everything they wanted. And another intangible, like you were mentioning, the mental gap, is momentum. And WiWiWi come into this game, they come in with the confidence of Aegis League champions, they draft a very specific game plan, and now you're about to enter the mid game and it's working exactly how you want it to. You know, what really is it going to take to shake them off of their course?
You can see that WiWiWi cats are kind of okay switching around the map at this point. There was that red buff steal by Mags a little bit ago, and Conceit wasn't at all concerned with being able to defend his topside objective. He instead is looking for a split map, and I favor WiWiWi cats in that play. I think that if you're able to, you know, cut off support of this Ivern from this Kai'Sa even further than you already have, it just means that Bobby is going to continue to struggle to have value in this game. And so far, you know, now that the plates have dropped and we've crested 14 minutes, so to speak, around that mid game, I think is really when 14 minutes can be classified as that. It just means that WiWiWi cats have basically done what we said they needed to do in the early game. Prevent the snowball from getting ahead here on this Kai'Sa and this Jax. They have not gotten the resources necessary to really be explosive in this game. And because of that, WiWiWi cats just continue to scale and frankly have better posture around these objectives. The Herald is up and they have control over the topside river, but you can see that SGR are trying to send as many people as possible to gain priority over that part of the map.
Yeah, I mean, they're committing everything into that mid side brush to try and get momentum. Night Ravens does have to expend Unstoppable Force. That probably guarantees the Rift Herald in my eyes, not having that ability and not having Nico on this side of the map either.
Hang on, look at Ratchet.
It does look like they're going to try and find a deep play onto Kai'Sa, but this Kai'Sa has Kraken Slayer and a pickaxe, which means that the Q is upgraded, so a lot of single target damage can come out there. But it does look like we are going to see the 2-man Herald go down. It is, in my opinion at least, the least important of those objectives that come through, so they're going to have to translate that Herald into a turret take. But first turret for WiWiWi, and they have so many options. I really look at team comps in terms of, as Mag's going to get another root caller rebutted.
Are we going to see it for the third time?
Bang.
There it is.
There it is. Perfect play. Great timing.
That's just Mags' life at this point. This man cannot get a skill shot land on to this Mel. It's just not going to happen. But honestly, I mean, SGR, most of the time, the reason you get that Herald is to try and buy yourself some priority for this third dragon. But I feel like WiWiWi actually kind of circumvented that. They got an early bot lane tower. They're going to get pushed in that part of the map, which means that SGR are going to have to overload in mid. WiWiWi cats have the resources to challenge them there because that mid turret is so healthy, and I feel like it just loses a lot of your value. You charge in mid, it's not going to kill the turret. They should be able to rebound and fight for this dragon coming up in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, and Ratchet can just extremely easily push in the side wave without the turret in front of them, can get so much prio. I was going to say has the teleport up and available to push the side lane, but they're going to use it now to get back onto the map, make sure that they can maintain control of the river, because last time we saw the Herald fight, they had it for a moment, but it got overloaded. They lost that control. They don't want that to be the case when Dragon Soul is on the line. And Night Ravens does not have teleport, but it looks like Hasm is just going to walk. Now he's walking towards the mid lane. He wants to join there. And this team comp, it has multiple opportunities for
this is built for a team fight. This is why you draft Orianna. You go and you try and get a ball deliverer. So that's what they have to do, but they're behind in gold. Can they do it? This is the real big first test for SGR's comp.
They're expending so much to keep Night Ravens out of the fight, and now they go. The flash forward is going to be expended. The Kai'Sa's in, but it's way too early. They're all knocked up from the Nico. So much damage. The Redemption trying to save their lives, but has them running for the hills, and it looks like the damage in front line has withheld on the side of WiWiWi. Rebuttal will prevent the damage, but the cooldowns aren't there, and Exodia has a ton of damage still up and available.
Exodia's walking up.
They are ticking up the clockwork wind-up.
Exodia
doing its job, but no shockwave means no Ace and Mags trying to do everything they can to reset the dragon. They'll at least be successful in that.
Hasm's up in 10.
And Mark
teleport too.
has respawned. They are running forwards. Night Ravens does not have unstoppable force. No ultimates will be available for the side of WiWiWi. 4,000 HP, and Jax is not teleporting.
You have to finish it. You have to finish it.
They are making a decision. Rootcaller is on it. It's going to be a smite fight, and at the end, the winner is going to be WiWiWi, but the ensuing fight will result in Mags getting extremely low, not going down, though. Marcotte is the one that ends up getting picked off again. So in the end, it's Dragon and kills for WiWiWi.
And I have to give so much credit there to Conceit specifically. Flashes over Crescent Guard, make sure that all of these threats that found their way onto his team's backline get knocked back. The space is bought for Ratchet and Pengu. They dish out the damage. The Eclipse comes out for the Mel, and it tears SGR asunder, Jack. They get the fight win. It's a little delayed, but they get the soul point as well. The win con stays alive, and SGR, their first test, they weren't able to pass it.
And I mean, for WiWiWi, they just had so many tools. Hasm found a great three-man counter-strike, but the Pop Blossom that resulted from that engage on 3 members as well, it just completely stops them in their tracks. And as you mentioned, Conceit getting over that wall, putting down so much damage onto Bobby, forcing them out. Now you've got Hasm and Night Raven's bot both have teleport up and available. Looks like we're not going to see that overzealous Otacon rush come through for WiWiWi. They're still scaling.
We won't have to for much longer.
Oh yeah, we'll never have to see it. I saw the incredible tweet. KT lost Worlds because of Atacon, and then Atacon pieces out of here. That did its job. Maintained the three-peat. But
it maintained the three-peat. It absolutely did. But I mean, now if you're SGR, what realistically is the angle for you here? Because your most fed member, the one by far most ahead of their counterparts, is definitely the Orianna. But I feel like using ahead of their counterpart is maybe jumping the gun a little bit. Ratchet was the main beneficiary alongside Pengu for kills in that most recent Dragon fight. So Exodia essentially is the one champion on SGR with that gold, and that's not the win con that they wanted to get ahead at this point. So what exactly is your plan around these future objectives? That Otacon is still up, like you said. That Dragon is fast approaching at about 2.5 minutes. So you have to get some type of play going before then, or else it just feels like it's going to be a repeat of that most recent Drake fight.
I feel like they're going to have to find a pick to get themselves some tempo, some time on the map where they can set up, because they can't afford to give over this Dragon. Infernal Soul against Sivir Mel is going to be an absolute nightmare to play against. And they still have some items to come through. Kai'Sa about to get most likely that Nashor's Tooth. That will mean you're essentially full build on the Kai'Sa. You have all of your upgrades. You're maybe going for Guardian Angel, Zhonya's different routes there, potentially the Void Staff with how much Malphite is going to be soaking up in these fights. But Ivern's starting to get some of these cheap enchanter items coming through. The redemption was important in that Dragon fight, but it's just going to have to be so much more if they're going to match the CC that they'll be meted with if they try to dive onto WiWiWi, which really, it's their only strategy is dive. You have Jax, Rel, Kai'Sa. That is your damage. And if they're not able to execute in these plays, how are they going to secure enough kills to make these fights work?
You can see they're trying to look for these opportunities. I mean, Bobby and Marcotte step up a little bit to get some chunk onto Rainy Daz, but he just proto belts away. I mean, WiWiWi Cats, they've been playing this game so patiently. They have managed their time really, really well, and they have not given SGR really any opportunity to find these creative angles onto them. And now it culminates in essentially a live or die fight where the Dragon Soul is on your doorstep in about 40 seconds. Both teams gravitating toward this bot side river, and you can see SGR not first to the punch, and with all the range WiWiWi Cats can hold over their head, it's very dangerous to face check into this part of the map.
Yeah, and the macro and tempo shown by WiWiWi has been so incredible. I mean, I feel like we blinked our eyes and it's 5 minutes later and we're already at the Dragon Soul. They did so well in just preventing any sort of advancement from SGR. And now utilizing the Nico so well. Rainy Days is walking up though. Ratchet eating that Void Seeker, taking a little bit more than they would have liked to take. Go forward now, and perfect timing.
Fnatic pause, bro. Fnatic pause, if ever I've seen one, as the fight TBD on what's going to be happening in the coming minutes. What an awful time to pause, by the way. We were getting excited, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is. But I'm a little bit surprised that SGR are actually opting for this fight. Obviously, this is surrendering soul, but there's an Otacon on the other side of the map, and I'm very surprised they actually don't pay attention to that objective at all. They're saying, you know what? We've hit our item breakpoints. We think we're strong enough to take this 5v5. It might not have worked the first time in the most recent Dragon, but we're going to be attempting it again. And I feel like that is an extremely risky gambit, because if you lose that fight, then it's not only the soul that you're surrendering, but it's potentially the subsequent Otacon on the other side of the map. Baron is also coming up in a few minutes as well, so it feels like you give over so much power to the other team in WiWiWi Cats that they're going to be able to control that topside river and lock you out of that objective as well. So you're really putting all of your eggs into this basket and praying that your execution is good, because if it's not, Jack, for lack of a better term, I feel like the game is kind of over. Your Kai'Sa's not accelerated, your Jax isn't either. What can you lean on to continue fighting at a somewhat even state? Oh, I hear.
I mean, it seems like
sounds...
what you have to do is win this team fight, because I feel like the difference here and what they might have learned is they aren't trying to split the fight. They tried last time to keep Night Ravens out of there, but Nico,
all right, here we go,
clean up just as well. Daisy already sent out, doing some advanced recon.
He's just dead.
It's destroyed, and so Max going down right away, but the engage, it is split again. Hazem is in the backline, and now Kai'Sa dives, kills off Pengu, still able to put down so much damage. Hazem and Kai'Sa will dive forward, continue getting the kills, and now there is no more damage available for the side of WiWiWi. Night Ravens doing all they can, but when it mattered most, Bobby showed up. The second highest ranked player waited for their moment, and with killer instinct took down WiWiWi, and SGR will claim their first Dragon.
And that's absolutely huge for SGR. The hope of winning game number one has just been reignited, and it comes off the back of Kai'Sa, of Hazem. Bobby and the Jax get it done when it matters most. The gambit paid off. They will prevent the soul claim from WiWiWi Cats, and like you said, so much gold funnel into Bobby. This Kai'Sa just got so much out of that fight on top of the objective, and now the respawns, they're redeploying on this top side, Jack. They want to keep up this pressure, and that Otacon is looking mighty juicy right now, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's great decision making, because either you see them all on bottom side and you just kill the Otacon, or they're forced to let these waves die to that bottom tier 1 turret, and that's just XP and gold that you're reclaiming, as they're only down 100 gold after that fight. I mean, it looked like it'd be disastrous with Mags going down right away.
It did.
But the redemption, Rainy Daz going forward and splitting themselves up from the rest of the team, found them that angle, and, you know, as much as Bobby got the kill credit, Hazem just continued to find openings and angles to push deeper and deeper into the fight. Now, it does look like, for the moment at least, SGR trying to decide exactly what they want to commit to. Now it is going to be the Otacon Nico clone.
They've started
a lot of scouting, 1000 HP, and again, Daisy doing their reconnaissance. Everything is up and available. 4,500 health.
They can't walk in.
On Otacon. They can't walk in. Daisy absolutely destroying Conceit in the front line, and it will result in most damage coming through. The redemption will be there as well, but it will be Conceit going down in the end. Has him diving deep, but has that execute. And now low health Rs from SGR. They want to try and continue this fight, but they just don't have the front line with Night Raven so low. And Bobby, again, full health, waits for their moment. Walks up and gets that final kill. I don't think this is a Baron angle though, but they
it might be.
Fight.
They're hitting it. Yeah. They're going for it. I mean, this is risky. I agree with you. Mags is half HP. There's a lot of poke on Ratchet's side, so you have to keep him away from the danger. It looks like they are going to back off. I think that's the smarter choice, Jack. But again, it's SGR winning out on the fight, and those Ivern bushes providing so much cover, forcing WiWiWi Cats to overstay and overstep. Conceit walks up, gets chunked by Hasm, tries to escape, and the Jax holds so much of the backline out by himself that it just provides no opening to Night Raven, who is on the side, looks for a big unstoppable force, but he's completely alone when it lands. The fight is on two different fronts, and SGR controlled them both. They get the Otacon, and now the game looking up for the first time here in this match. They are up in gold, the Dragon in less than 2 minutes, and it is going to be fought on a lot more even turf than the previous one, Jack.
Yeah, Daisy's my MVP from that fight. Just holding Conceit back for so long. And this Ivern is huge now. Ryla's Crystal Scepter.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's going to be so obnoxious to deal with. Bobby, as I joked earlier, full build with that Nashor's Tooth, going to deal out so much damage. And the Otacon, really more important than just another objective, because that XP that they got from that, 2-level advantage in the mid lane now. Jungle is even again. Hasm's up a level, 2-level advantage in the support role. You know, that really is going to help them level out the playing field in more ways than just the gold can display. Mags taking some damage from that blooming burst, but they are still able to clear out the vision. As you know, we all kind of come to a standstill here, and we have to refocus just for a moment. Yes, SGR are up in gold. They have evened out the XP, but they are still facing a Dragon Soul potential from WiWiWi. That does change how many fights they win. They are going to be up against that Soul for the rest of this game. And we see they're trying to take control of the mid lane. Bot lane's been abandoned by both teams, but assuredly Sivir is going to be able to push this wave in.
Yeah, they still have the superior wave clear. When you have Mel, when you have Sivir, that is just a given, but it feels so, I guess, meaningless is the word, when all SGR have to do is walk in regardless of prio, and at the moment they have the superior stack. I mean, you were mentioning Mags and how supportive he is. Look how tanky the Ivern is now. It is so difficult for any of the WiWiWi Cats to get onto the backline and legitimately assassinate any of the members onto SGR because of how tanky they are. So that just means you're going to have to play the long game. You're going to have to, you know, fight them out in these extended trades, and SGR want to do that every day of the week with how much shielding there is on Ivern, and now Conceit is getting engaged on.
I mean, Hasm just walks forward into their entire team, and Daisy is preventing the engage from the side of Malphite. A one-man ultimate will come through. One-man Counter-Strike, and Hasm is getting away, but Pengu has so many items now.
Bobby!
Rodeo will keep them alive. Now Bobby and Pengu are 1v1, but Daisy comes in clutch with the knock-up, and Bobby will continue reigning superior in this AD carry matchup. And while it is very split, it's a 6v5. Daisy stands strong, and when you've got an extra support on your team, it is hard to beat a champ like Kai'Sa.
And Bobby finds the backline. Killer instincts forward, assassinates Rainy Daz. Pengu next on the menu. And they find themselves their second dragon. Now they have claimed that. They have continued to prevent the soul from being claimed. The Baron is on the other side. They didn't want to risk it the first time around, Jack, but there's no risk the second time around.
Yep, 8 seconds on Pengu, 10 seconds on Night Raven's Ratchet. Still in a decent spot to put some damage down, but Kai'Sa absolutely melts through this Baron. It will be smited away, but Mag's in trouble. Going to get hit by that Golden Eclipse. Won't be enough damage to kill, but will be enough to dissuade any sort of push right now. And I mean, we talked all early game about the confidence in the WiWiWi draft, but the confidence of this team, undefeated in their match record, has them been putting themselves in risky positions all game, and you see how much damage that they're absorbing with the counter strike. Oh, what an incredible shockwave. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to really capitalize on it just yet. Don't look like they're going to be able to get much on the way of kills, but these Void Seekers, with that Zhonya's being completed now, Kai'Sa just turns into this do-everything champ, can poke, can assassinate, can move. It's just so unbelievably difficult, as I thought Ratchet's back potentially was going to be stopped there. And with full control of the mid wave, looks like they are going to take a small reset, reopen onto the map, and try and assert their pressure on multiple points as Hasm gets deployed to the bottom lane.
There's tons of standing gold here for SGR. There's 2 tier 1s still standing. They're going to be able to claim all of those and, you know, continue ballooning this gold lead, giving over these resources to the Kai'Sa. You were mentioning those Void Seekers doing a lot of damage, but he still has 1 item that he has yet to complete. So we say it can be bad, or we say it is bad, Jack, but it can get worse. And SGR are trying to get to that marker. Top or bot lane turret does go down. Mid lane outer is on 1 sliver of HP, almost certainly going to follow. And this just means SGR for the subsequent dragons are going to have such an easy time getting control of this bot side. It has been the thorn in their side all game long, but now that thorn has been plucked. The setup is there because they can make plays like this on the Night Raven.
He's saying, whoa, this is supposed to be a 1v1. Where'd all these guys come from? And now this tier 2 turret is going to be taken. Again, as you mentioned, so much gold going into the pockets of SGR. Looks like Nico trying to find an angle behind. It will go forward and concede. Has Nico! An enormous pop blossom will absolutely shockwave the first, but the shockwave finds him all. Bobby completely untouched. That's the guy you got to go for. Pengu has quietly become extremely strong. Is going to get Mark caught. Potentially no. Kai'Sa killer instinct will save their team. A quadra kill for Bobby as they secure the team fight win and likely the game.
It's going to be the push here. SGR, they've got 3 members strong. The Pop Blossom from Rainy Daz, it was strong, but the Shockwave and the damage from Kai'Sa was stronger. The faithful and the patient shall be rewarded. It pays off. WiWiWi Cats take control of the early and mid game, but SGR dominate the late game as we got a freeze frame. There we go. This has been a known bug. What a way to reward our anticipation, huh, Jack?
You know, I usually see that bug 3 minutes before the Nexus goes down. I have a feeling it was
10
way
seconds
less than that. Yeah.
Well, it's 10 seconds. We're getting somewhere, right? It's getting better. It's not perfect, but, you know, 3 minutes to 10 seconds, it's improving, Jack. Okay, give them some time, and eventually... Maybe at the end of this series, we'll get to 1 second, right?
When they said the gap was closing, I didn't think that's what they meant. But
no, I didn't either, but here we are.
We are getting there as we see our post-game breakdown. And, you know, I kept waiting for moments to say, you know, this Sivir is getting pretty fed as well. But, I mean, Bobby just absolutely dominating with that Kai'Sa performance. And it really makes sense why they would index into such a supportive and kind of facilitative team comp when they had so much faith in Bobby to perform. You get the Enchanter as well as the engaged support. You have that Orianna who, you know, you don't usually count on Orianna for damage, but that dragon fight where Exodia was finding those kills to save the fight, really impressive stuff. And I think it goes to show that, you know, you'll have games like this from SGR where Bobby just pops off, even in fights where they have great setup on the opposing team, still able to find the wins. But this is a very complete team.
Absolutely. And I feel like the biggest thing we have to compliment from this match, Jack, is just the patience at which they played with, the resilience at which they played with, because they were down. You can see on the gold graph around 2.5K for a majority of the game. It felt like WiWiWi Cats were finding the superior angles. They were managing to really slow the pace of this game down in their favor, but it all broke open the moment that fight, like you said, around the Soul Dragon really was a victory here by Stasis Gaming Resurgence. So massive props to them for being patient, understanding their item spikes and their limits, and being able to pull the trigger when they know it was most optimal. And I feel like that is a scary thing to have to go against, when you can do so well at limiting a team's ability to actually get these early game plays, and they still manage to come together in the late game. It's a difficult hurdle to get over, but WiWiWi Cats have done it before. Like we said, took down DDG Genesis, who had a similar game and series score to Stasis Gaming Resurgence. So they are the Titan killers, and we're gonna have to see if they can go into game number 2 with a little bit more of that energy to finish the job. But before that happens, we are going to take a small, short little break as we wait for the teams to get back into draft. So we'll see you on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
We actually, first and foremost,
you're right.
I want to say, you know, despite that early pressure, we did not see SGR falter. And speaking of not faltering on your international purchases, Zen Market is your one-stop shop, one-stop solution for buying products directly from Japan. They'll help you buy items from over 10,000 shops in Japan, as well as place bids on auctions on your behalf. They'll even consolidate all of your items safely into one box and can ship internationally. They'll provide excellent customer service in 19 languages, which is why Zen Market is trusted by over 2 million users worldwide. It used to be 1 million, now we're up to 2. Check the panel below the stream or click the link in the chat to try them out now. If you sign up with the promo code Aegis, that's AEGIS, you'll get 1,000 yen off your first international shipping free. That's Aegis, code Aegis. Also, if you decide to make a purchase on Zen Market, use code Aegis25, that's AEGS25, to get 25% off your first purchase. That's incredible. Thank you, Zen Market. And now, we'll go to a quick break. See you on the other side.
日本限定あ全マーケットを使わった
今日は老舗をしっかり見て回らなくちゃね。
いやいや、ここはジャンル順でしょ。
名前順の方がいいんだよ。
現代か洋代の名前順？ローマ字それともひらがな？僕は色で並べるのが好きなんだけどね。全部に対応させよっか。80年代のホラーゲーをください。これでみんな幸せ。
ありがとう全マーケット
Welcome back, everybody, to the AML quarterfinals. Game number 2 now between Stasis Gaming Resurgence and WiWiWi Cats. Game number 1 going over to SGR after a slow, steady, and methodical turnaround in the Dragon Soul fight that allowed them to win off those team fights and then just kind of take that ball and run with it, Jack. It really felt like after that after that Dragon Soul team fight, they didn't really drop any tempo and just managed to end the game within, really 5 to 7 minutes realistically.
Yeah, and it wasn't without the best attempts possible from WiWiWi. They found some very good pop blossoms, some good engages of their own, but while it was the expected outcome for many, certainly not the expected gameplay. That early advantage WiWiWi had they maybe drafted a more early to mid-game focused comp, probably could have taken more advantage of that. And, you have Mel that scales Sivir, that's going to scale. Really had to wait, even though they were so far ahead. And I feel like they should take that into this game and say, we can get advantages on these guys early. We can catch them out, we can beat them, and we can really snowball and index that into a winning game plan. Now, they are going to select blue side, in my opinion, the correct move still in game 2. A lot of OPs left. We had some unique picks that you don't typically see in game 1s, so you're going to have a lot of options, especially in the jungle. And Conceit played very well in that game, despite being on the losing side. So now you force SGR to probably have to ban that Wukong, probably going to have to ban this Udyr still. I mean, there's a lot that Conceit has in their pocket, so expect that on SGR, whereas WiWiWi still probably have some Syndra bans they've got to get out of their way, but other than that, I feel like they're way more wide open on blue side.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think Syndra is probably going to be a staple ban all throughout this series, but I am definitely looking at Conceit here in game number 2, because I feel like game number 1, he really was the difference maker in a lot of those early game fights, just being able to use that Crescent card, buy the space available for your Sivir, for your Mel, a lot of these long-ranged AD carries who need that peel in order to function in these team fights. Conceit provided all of that and more, but then we kind of coasted into the late game where he would try to do the same thing, be that primary engage, but he would just get bursted down too much. He would get kind of tossed to the side, and then they would be able to get onto the back line anyway. So I think going in to game number 2 here, what I'm really looking at here in the carries of WiWiWi Cats is just a little bit more self-sustainability. Obviously, we saw the rebuttal value, we saw the spell shield value of the Mel and the Sivir respectively, but I think in this second game, you need something with a little bit more mobility, something that can move around the fight a little better and can escape some of these threats that are going to try and jump you at every possible turn. It just can't be it can't just be Conceit putting in the work to keep you alive. You got to save yourself sometimes, Jack.
Yeah, and one player I want to call out specifically, Night Ravens had 19k damage on Malphite. Get this guy on something that
get this guy on something other than a tank. Yeah, I agree with you.
I wouldn't be upset if they first picked Ambessa here and just said, you know what, this is his best remaining champion. He knows all the matchups. Let's just make sure he's got something that's potentially game running for him. And Conceit will find something, Pengu will find anything. And I really think that Rainy Days as well showcased a lot. It was the 25th Nico loss in the AML fall, but again, like the Nico felt fine to me. They weren't able to really get those coordinated ultimate. They were able to find a lot of people, just not at the right times. And we do see that Ambessa get banned. They do not want Night Ravens on something extremely comfortable. And a lot of focus going towards Exodia, who definitely had a standout game.
A lot of focus just in the mid lane generally, right? We've seen 2 mid bans. We've also seen the Ambessa taken away. So I do think that the picks are specifically for this B1 are leaning really heavily into probably just some fighter for the jungle. You know, we mentioned the Wukong. I think SGR, they banned that away, and there is possibility for something like a Nazir to come out if we, as WiWi Cats, have Ratchet practicing that pick, which, I mean, every mid laner has a little bit of practice on the Azir. Let's be honest. Champ's been around for for a while and has been so universal that you have to have at least a little bit of experience on the character, right? So I do think that it's kind of going to be on SGR here for which matchup they want to give a little bit more breathing room to, because you first pick the jungle, you can counter pick that and get a winning matchup in that department, something that I think Mags would probably really want going into game number 2, because as we saw, the Zinzao was able to dictate a lot of that early game. Obviously the Ivern managed to be a lot more prevalent in the later phases, but if you're trying to get the snowball here for Hasm, for Bobby, that you weren't able to find in game number 1, I think being able to have a favorable jungle matchup is a good start.
Absolutely. I would expect them, as we do have a correction on that ban, it is going to be the Senna again. I mean, I understand they don't want Bobby doing what he did on Kai'Sa and Senna. That would be an absolute nightmare. And the Azir is going to be taken away as well. I would expect, if Wukong is the ban here, them to focus mid lane, because the OP picks last game really helped break that match, because we have to take from last game. Yes, you can have a very good identity, but you can't give over these OP champs. They're meta for a reason, and you give over the Orianna as like seemingly an afterthought on the second rotation for blue side, and it ends up doing so much. So I think that if we see this last ban from SGR be the Wukong, grab yourselves a Talia. Maybe, I know Aurora is very heavily prioed in AML. Maybe grab that the Hui, something that's really strong, and it is going to be the Wukong ban. They could also just grab, I know you did mention the falling in prio, but Pantheon still up and available, very strong throughout the year, is going to be Corki, which very high flex potential, as Ratchet played AD carry last year, and Corki was one of their most played.
I would imagine this, though, probably like 90% sure that this goes over to Pengu. And I mean, I think it's a pretty good pick here, though SGR do have some opportunities to really just focus down on that range. If they wanted to go something like a Caitlyn lane and just get that priority that WiWiWi Cats had over them for game number 2, I would definitely favor that as a possibility. But it seems like SGR are going to do what you said, Jack, where they are going to go for the Aurora. They're going to be looking for a lot of this burst, and I do think that that is a pretty good start here, especially if you're going to be pairing it up with more of a setup type jungler such as the Jarvan. I think Aurora really thrives with champions like that, but we're going to have to wait on that jungle pick. It will be the Yunara. So 2 of the OPs taken here by SGR, and does give them a lot of flexibility as to what they want to accomplish with this comp. You've got some mid-game scaling with someone like an Aurora that really spikes at 2 items, and then Yunara for your 3+ item mark can really get the ball rolling. So it seems like they're trying to cover all of their bases. What will WiWiCat respond with? And the Pantheon that we alluded to going to be locked in alongside that Annie. So that's a lot of lockdown and point and click CC that Corki can really make the most of. And I feel like it can't be the only one doing that. I think you have to give yourself something carry oriented in the top lane to be able to make use of all of that setup.
And now SGR, on the other hand, if Hasm ends up playing this Mundo, he says, you play a tank last game, all right, we'll play a tank this game. We'll take one of our 2 carries in the top side out of it. But there's a good side and a bad side to this setup so far. They have a ton of lockdown, a ton of playmaking, and I think moving Ratchet away from that long-range scaling and into a more playmaking position could be very beneficial. Also, Conceit's ability now to impact the map as soon as level 6 hits, be anywhere, be a part of any fight, is going to be incredible. But at the same time, they have committed to a very low-range composition that Yunara and Aurora are going to love playing into. So I feel like the Mundo pick is great here, too.
I think it is, and I feel like there's also a lot of flexibility on what you can do here for the support. I think Yunara thrives with a lot of these very, very good scaling supports, and not only that, but she also thrives when you've got these short-range comps. A lot of these supports that you can pick, like I'm really looking at Enchanters to be something focused down here by SGR. Like I think that Lulu isn't awful here. I think that that is something that WiWiWi Cats have to be in consideration of. But another underrated pick that I doubt we see see it, but I think it would be really good this game, is the Renata, unironically enough. I think that Renata is great into this low range comp that will have so much value with the bailout and with the ultimate to just be able to buy yourself time for this Aurora and this Yunara to free hit. So probably not going to be picked, but a man can dream, Jack.
Yeah. I love Renata as well as a Callista Renata enjoyer, one of my favorite lanes. And RI caught the same thing. You see low range, you see melee, and Renata is like, give me that hostile takeover. We're going to run this game. I also think Milio in this spot could be very good with the Yunara, extending that range even further. You know, they did a lot of talk about the 575 range, and it can be very devastating once it gets increased. I love the Aatrox pick here because... It also, on this patch, this could still be a flex. We could see Mundo top Aatrox jungle, could see it the other way around, theoretically, but I think it gives Hasm a really strong matchup in the top side where if you aren't getting ahead, if the trades aren't going your way, you can sit back, you can farm, and you can work your magic in the team fights, or you can get ahead and run the game. With these low-range champs for WiWiWi, I wouldn't be shocked, even with the Ornn taken, I think Night Ravens might have played himself into a spot where like Sion might just have to be what he takes here. They really need to match his front line.
But then you're so low ranged, right? Obviously, top laners are known for their range, but having to walk up to this comp just feels like a recipe for disaster on the side of WiWiWi Cats, especially when a lot of that lockdown that we mentioned is short range. So you're going to have to commit to locking down a target, but putting yourself at risk at the same time. And I feel like this is no more evident than like the Annie, right? If you're going to try and stun someone, you're putting yourself in a position to get hit again, as WiWiWi Cats are going to say, screw your Sion. We're going for the Fiora. So I actually really like this, you know, especially with the Pantheon locked in. You give yourself a lot of side laning. You make that Grand Starfall have a ton of value if SGR try to punish you for that, turning a 1v1 or 1v2 into a 2v2 or 2v1 in your favor. And all in all, I think it just gives them some much needed scaling. Not to mention, with all of this lockdown, it's going to be really easy to get these grand challenges activated, take down one target, get that giant heal circle, and really provide your team some of that sustain, which they are innately lacking, I will say, Jack, as the Nautilus going to be the last lock in here. And I still think Renata has so much value in this game, by the way. Just putting that out there. If they go Renata, I'm going to be real happy.
Yep, 3 melee, 2 low range. Renata feels great here. And now they have other options too. If you don't go for that Enchanter route, Braum just got way better in Prio against
like
Pantheon
Bard,
Fiora.
Bard, Lulu, Renata, like there's so many options.
They've got a ton of options, and I feel like in this game on the WiWiWi side, Night Ravens said they're debating what to pick, and he said, I just had to play Malphite. I want to play Fiora. Let's go. And you can dodge every one of Aatrox's very telegraphed abilities with the Fiora, really run this lane matchup. I like the Nautilus as well. It is going to be the Braum. You're into 3 melee champs. You can really halt any engage, keep that Yunara safe. But I think what WiWiWi did that really improves on what they learned from last game is they got a comp that can snowball, and they got a jungler that, you know, Xin Zhao was all over the map, and now you've got Grand Starfall. He can be anywhere, and as you mentioned, it's so difficult even for the best teams in the world, let alone an AML team, when you're fighting your lane opponent like normal, you're just trading, to keep in the back of your mind, like, oh, Pantheon can be here in a second. I have to be really careful. It's hard to keep reminding yourself of that over and over again.
It definitely is, and I feel like one thing that really makes this Braum into a more scary threat and something that can be used more offensively than, you know, defensively, which is what he is known for. That peel is really why you pick Braum. But these concussive blows work really well with some of these champions because there's a decent amount of auto attack resets and high attack speed, particularly on the Yunara and on this Mundo. So they should be able to get those passive procs from the Braum off pretty easily in these team fights, as we are on to the Rift here for game number 2. WiWiWi Cat down 0-1 after a really convincing early and mid game, just not being able to close it out in the later stage. Will they be able to turn it around here, Jack?
Well, one thing they do have in this game that I feel like they lacked last game and were still able to win is SGR has so much burst AoE damage. Like this Yunara Aurora combination mid game against this low range WiWiWi team is going to do so much. And if this persists, yeah, I don't think it will. It's a very interesting level 1, keeping that mid laner down there. I also want to shout out for Pengu, another champion right up their alley. They love these caster champs, and Corki alongside Yunara and the Sivir are the highest prio AD carries right now. So grabbing another one of those for Pengu, who, just like most of the players from last team, really wasn't the reason that that loss came through. Did their job for a majority of that game. Now as we see these lane startups, Pantheon looking to try and go bot to top, but on the other side, Mundo going to have mirrored jungle paths.
And Mundo, obviously, one of the more experimented with picks here in season 2025. And, you know, the victim of, or rather the beneficiary, I should say, of a meme is Marcotte is ignited.
Whoa, Marcotte taking so much damage. Flash forward, would be the end of him. Ignite and heal will cancel each other out. So Marcotte will get out alive. Yunara will activate that cultivation and get some damage down. But in the end, massive win for the side of WiWiWi, pushing them in early.
And now, I feel like you say it's a win, but it doesn't feel like it can be capitalized on, right? Pengu used Flash. Rainy Days has this Flash, but he's extremely low range. So if you commit for some aggressive play, you really have to get in their faces, which could amount to Yunara just chunking you out beforehand. And it's not going to be rewarded by Conceitas. They're going in again.
I mean, they could do so much here, but that unstoppable wall comes up, and now they're turning it absolutely around. Yunara has so much HP, but scared of the CC that can be put out by Rainy Days, and there is the hook landing again. Barrier will be expended, but they know how much damage is coming through the other way.
Oh no!
Second blood, 2v2 kill in the bottom lane for Bobby and Marcotte. It was back and forth, but in the end, it is a clean win for SGR.
And they overexert themselves. Rainy Days just steps up too far, and he gets found. It gives them an opening for the 2v2, and now has them. Possibly the next target is super low, and can see he's wrapping around. All it would take is one spear to find his back.
I mean, he's using that teleport flash forward, but it will not get the... Whoa, red buff will
gonna be an execute.
And it's execute. 1-0. That's a faster back. That's what he's telling himself. But now Hex Flash over the wall. Exodia is going to hit with so much damage being put down. Ratchet could be in trouble. Does not get the stun through. Exodia will jump across the veil to try and get away here. Has to dodge the hook, but Mag shows up, protects their investment in the mid lane. Just walks through. Rainy Days still sticking around, though. Everyone's playing so aggressively. Ratchet even sticking around to continue farming, and now bot lane has invaded the mid lane. The supports have new jobs, and it is escort your mid laner out of this lane.
I saw what you did there. You said it was the Mundo investment. He's playing the money man Mundo skin. I respect it, Jack. Yeah, this just kind of feels like the task the supports have been given at the current moment, and Rainy Days seems to be the one succeeding. Obviously, Marcotte can hold this wave for Exodia, who has that teleport to be able to catch a lot of these minions, but doesn't feel the need to do so. We'll just go right back to the bot lane, and so far, SGR, a much bloodier game at the current moment than game number 1, Jack. We commented on how slow of paced that first match was and how much it favored WiWiWi Cats, but I feel like the slower paced game favors SGR, conveniently enough, here in game number 2, and they're the ones making it faster.
Yeah, the scaling for Yunara will be very evident as this game continues, especially considering the early econ coming through. Hasm is going to have to get away, but the flash fall cancels the auto attack.
Oh.
Needs to expend the flash in the end, but that is the second kill in this lane. This one going into the pocket of Night Ravens, and you're seeing the difference when Night Ravens is put on a tank for team fight purposes versus when they're put on a lane dominant counter pick.
Absolutely. Gets the solo kill, and now should be able to shove in that wave. Gets himself a clean recall. Also hasn't even used teleport. Likely won't need to. So he can just hold on to that summoner spell if he so chooses. But SGR going to trade that kill for the first dragon of the game. And I think really the big thing I'm looking for is in about 2.5 minutes. Those grubs going to be, I would say, a really big deal, particularly for this top side. We talk about Night Raven with the Fiora, his ability to side lane, and the grubs would really push that forward, but the Mundo as well has the ability to do the same. So it's just a matter of bolstering your side laners and making them more viable threats going into the mid to late game, which we have said will be the really explosive part of this game too, as Hasm has to be very careful.
Yeah, and I see Rainy Days here trying to push this advantage in the mid lane, has that level up conceit.
Speed up.
Using that Mortal Will to get forward and has him with no flash is certainly going to go down, tries to find a response, but it will not be there. The Grand Challenge gives a good amount of healing to get out, and this Fiora, I know the kills are going on to Pantheon, but the amount of XP and gold they are going to attain from the item advantage, the damage advantage in this matchup. You know, Fiora's, they win games one of two ways. They either show up to a team fight and kill everyone, or they ignore their team and split push for the win. As Rainy Days, we do see the activation of the Transcendence, and it's going to just be an auto attack that just takes down Rainy Days. And Yunara, some people consider this champ a pure scaler, but you get an early CC down and get this damage going, this champion just absolutely melts you.
Right, and it's going to have to be the thing challenging the Fiora in the later stages of this game. You mentioned the gold mostly going on to the Pantheon. This is meant to be kind of the first half of the bridge here for where you want to be allocating your resources, right? Pantheon can really take it in the early game and accelerate it forward in those first couple of items when he hits that spike and is at his best. But then after that, it's all the Fiora. So if he is able to keep putting pressure on this top side, I think it's going to be a really nice transition, as now Mags has to run, does have the ultimate.
Does also have flash as well. They want to force that out. The ult comes through as well, but Executioner's calling is in Fiora's pocket, but now everyone is here on this top side, so too far forward is Night Ravens, and they got the swap off too. Pengu's also in trouble.
Pengu no mana.
Says, I don't care, I've been getting dominated by this Fiora, you're new here, and just runs him down. Conqueror is activated, but the Q cooldown is so long. Pantheon will come through with the Starfall to support their AD carry. Also gets that speed forward, doesn't hit the spear shot, and you will see that Infernal Change pull them back, but in the end, just tap that Q button and Comet Spear will finish the job.
But I feel like that's absolutely worth it. We talked about the 8-minute mark, and it seems like SGR were on point with being able to respond around that time where they get onto the grub. Should be able to claim a majority of them, but we're looking at a fight in the mid lane. Ratchet, though, has to be careful.
Oh, he missed the timber, so no stun comes through, and the Between Worlds cannot be missed. You just throw that thing down in the middle of a fight, it's going to hit everybody. Not only do they secure all three grubs, but they get the kill onto Ratchet, and with this adjusted team comp and philosophy, it feels like SGR are getting everything they want.
It really does. SGR get themselves 3 grubs. This really pushes forward Mags' ability to be that side lane threat in the mid to late game. And also Hasm, I mean, he did go down in the 1v2, attempting to get one up on Pengu, but I feel like it's worth it. You call the attention of Conceit, you make him use that ultimate. He's not able to be there for the top side play, so they're the ones surrendering an objective for a kill. Not to mention SGR did trade that kill by getting it on to Ratchet. So really solid early game from them so far, and really good beginning to getting some of these late game threats started and going earlier than expected.
Yeah, and some things to point out as we get towards this dragon fight. We see the jungle matchup. Thank God Pantheon got those kills. Otherwise, they would be so far behind Mags, who has taken every single blue buff spawn and continuously cycled through those camps while still being present for their laners for the most part. And the other thing to point out is with the constant roaming, Rainy Daz not yet level 6. So if this dragon fight happens before that ultimate is unlocked for Nautilus, that is an enormous advantage that you really never see come through at a 11-minute dragon fight.
That could definitely mean the difference, because it means just no easy lock on from a distance to that backline. Yunara does have the flash. If he gets ulted by Nautilus, I mean, that's you having to expend it, right? Because the follow-up CC from the Annie and the Pantheon is just too great of a risk to run to not flash it. So I do think it just gives more safety over to some of these backline carries, but those backline carries really do pack a punch, as we do see Rainy Daz going in is still level 5.
And it does look like the strategy is going to be to give over the dragon, as you see Conceit on that top side. Pengu walking very far forward here. You do not win this 2v2 right now, as Rainy is still level 5, and it looks like the call to concede this dragon is firmly established. No attention whatsoever from WiWiWi given over. They understand where their advantage is, and it's on the top side of the map. 2 levels is the advantage. As Flash expended for Ratchet as the Between Worlds comes down, and I mean, really starting to fall apart in all 3 lanes right now.
I feel like Night Raven kind of has to be the guy really pushing it forward, but he's sort of jailed in the 1v1 here on top side. Doesn't have that teleport to be able to link up with the rest of his squad. Dragon claimed by SGR, like we said, and now we're going to be kind of entering a bit of a lull state where I feel like this is exactly what SGR want. Is nope, scratch that.
That's not what you want at all. You did not want to stop those recalls. The charge will come through, but here comes Pantheon. Turn this fight from a 2v2 into a 3v2 shutdown onto Bobby, and this is why you pick Pantheon for Conceit. Like we said, even I forgot that Pantheon was on the map. So how can you expect SGR to remember in that what was a winning 2v2 for them?
And that's another kill going over to Conceit. Now 4-1 on this Pantheon pick. Realistically, I feel like if he is able to... Oh, hang on.
I mean, Nice Raven just going so far forward, able to riposte that knockup, but Hasm does get out of the way.
No shot.
That final lunge.
Wow.
It will mean they get out. It is a flash for flash trade. In the end, you know, 2 levels down almost. Not the worst thing in the world.
I mean, that just means that Ratchet, you can see he's kind of jailed from getting back to his lane. They're calling a ton of attention to get this Annie to a safe space, even taking the blue buff. So Mag's going to steal that one away, but now Conceit is here.
Oh, Conceit's furious. It's the 3rd blue buff this game that's been stolen from him, but now Aatrox coming in huge with 4 total knockups. They will die in the end, but the Between Worlds putting down so much damage. Night Ravens does go down to Exodia, who is all of the damage presence. Marco trying to walk forward. It's a double kill for Exodia for now. It won't be any more, but in the meantime, bot lane, Bobby is just pushing Pengu underneath their turret over and over again. Going forward, barrier will be expended, and it will be the kill for Pengu. The barrier difference is huge, but still in the mid lane, there is fighting. It won't result in any kills, but just chaos erupting across the rift.
Yup, SGR trying to push the envelope of aggression, but WiWiWi Cats managed to get away. Bobby falling in the 1v1 though does give Pengu his first inkling of kill gold here in the second match on the Corki. Still though, really good stuff there from Hasm. I know he's been kind of the victim of a lot of these fights and has gone down in a lot of exchanges by Night Raven, but did manage to get kind of a Timu the Shy moment with that Aatrox. Got a 3-man hit on the final charge of the queue and got them low enough to where his team, even after he died, re-engaged the fight and picked up some kills. But those kills are extremely misplaced, Jack, because I can't believe we haven't said anything yet, but 3 of them are on the Braum.
I mean, this is how I play Braum. You get kills, you run the map. This is a champion that with econ, it's like most supports. I remember there was a conversation years ago about giving your kills over to your support so they can get excess gold and get real tank items. But, you know, we're going to have to see, as you mentioned, with those kills being on Braum, you have to see that translated into an actual, like, benefit. Otherwise, you really are kind of like, damn, why didn't we wish these would have gone on to one of our carries? Luckily enough, the call is about to be completed for Bobby. Exodia getting some kills as well. And another shout out, as you mentioned, to Hasm. Those spots could not have been sweeter. The only thing it was missing was damage, but having all of that, you know, dissuasion on that fight is what allowed them to win in the first place, as Exodia just jumps right towards Conceit. Absolutely no fear. The Rift Herald will be secured for SGR in exchange for this bottom turret in favor of WiWiWi.
They get themselves the Herald. This will allow them to segue and likely get Soul Point in about 30 seconds here. That Dragon will be coming up. You can see that WiWiWiCat's a little bit divided here in trying to get that priority. Ratchet and Conceit are in the mid lane. And they're linking up with Pengu now, but they have to be going as a unit. Luckily, it seems like the recall timers are actually a little bit late here from SGR. They reset around 15 seconds before the objective, meaning that they'll lose control of the bot side river and be forced to face check into this really, really reliant CC lockdown comp that we talked about, Jack.
And it's very surprising. It's something that they did very well of prioritizing all last game, but it's also something that WiWiWi did very well as well. Mags is going to be able to lead the charge as the teleport will come through for Exodia, and they're just so far ahead in terms of damage. They just walk in and re-establish their position, but there are a lot of wards left over. Great placement of the Rift Herald. Looks like this might be a willing trade as Exodia pulled out of the Veil and will be eliminated in a millisecond. Marcote almost certainly will be next, but is going to be able to get out using that flash as Mags says, we got our mid turret, peace out, we're heading top lane. We got to get this Aatrox out of the hellscape that he's been living in. And in the end, it will be Dragon and likely 2 turrets in exchange for a turret for WiWiWi.
Yeah, so they're going to get themselves that. They prevent the Soul Point as well, so they will deny that win condition for SGR for at least 5 more minutes, as those turrets that you talked about going to be traded. This is what we kind of alluded to when SGR have those grubs. They just have such a scarier side lane. We've seen Night Raven be really dominant in the laning phase, but that hasn't really translated much into actually being a threat on the side, right? Hasm has been mostly able, especially for the last 5 minutes, weather the storm and prevent Night Raven from really, you know, threatening this tier 1 topside tower, and that has just allowed the rest of SGR to be a little bit more aggressive, knowing that the Fiora isn't under the bed and in the closet and, you know, anywhere that they shouldn't be or where you don't expect them to be.
Yeah, the absolute monster of Night Ravens in this game. But Mags, I feel like quite a monster in their own right. We just haven't seen them fully unleashed. 170 CS, has that Heartsteel, but hasn't really had many opportunities to start stacking it. But against this very low range composition that we've been mentioning, it is going to result in a ton of opportunities to get the damage down. And now we're seeing so much focus in the top lane. Hasm holding his own against Night Ravens and will pop the ultimate.
Going in.
The hook goes wide. The flash is just useless, and Hasm will eventually go down as well. Will the turret, as that grand challenge was invisible but did result in a ton of healing, and it will just be this turret end kill. Doesn't look like there's going to be any answer unless this mid lane something crazy happens. But for now, just gonna be that kill in the turret on the top side. As actually, never mind, Ratchet expending everything onto Exodia's head to try and get the kill there, and mid lane is going to be crazy. I have no idea where Rainy Days went. And now Exodia utilizing that Between Worlds to get out of their mid lane turret.
Still in top lane, by the way.
They're just pushing, got the tier 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's tier 2 for tier 2, but WiWiWiCats get, you know, double the amount of towers on that top side, so I feel like it's more worth it for them. They inject a lot of gold into Night Ravens. He should be able to get his second item now. Not only that, but this also frees up the Fiora to get a lot more done around the bot side, right? These dragons are going to be the main focus of the game from here on out. That Otacon also coming up in about 15 seconds does leave a little bit more room for you to focus on that top side, but the Soul Point objective is what SGR primarily focused on, and if WiWiWiCats can send Night Ravens toward that bot side, give them that priority, and make it difficult for SGR to walk into the bot side river, I feel like that is just going to be the exact thing they want, and the exact thing they shall get. Is now a lot of focus on this top side because the Otacon has made its way onto the Rift, Jack.
Yeah, but they're going to be able to push in that top wave so far, and Night Ravens just spent 2,800 gold after that top push, and now will be headed towards the tier 2 turret in the bottom lane. That's another 700 gold that could go into Fiora's pocket. If we can go back to the items, I want to see what they bought. Phage, full Merc treads. I mean, this is going to be absolutely a nightmare to deal with in the side lane. Even for Exodia on this Aurora, they are going to start up the Otacon. TP available for...
They're just going for it.
On the bottom side, they're just right-clicking it to death, and Pengu is not close enough. Neither is Ratchet. Rainy Days is doing a bit of bouncing to try and keep them out, but Conceit
gotta go. Conceit is just walking in.
There, he just got
it.
Steal it in the end. We see the fight kicking off between worlds does not go well and puts Aurora in a terrible position, but we are seeing the advancements still of SGR. The briefcases will not land, but it won't matter because they are fast as hell running down Ratchet. Yunara gets the kill in the end. They do secure the Otacon, WiWiWi, but they leave with 2 less bodies than they went in with.
And crucially, SGR with the numbers advantage should be able to get those resets off faster onto the bot side quicker and set up for this dragon. Sure, you lose the Otacon, but you have a golden opportunity with superior numbers to get better setup around the other objective, the other win con, Jack, and that's exactly where they're going.
Yeah, and there's few junglers where I have the confidence to just say before the play, yeah, Conceit's gonna steal this, but he did exactly that.
It's empowered Q smite. Yep. It's empowered Q smite on Pantheon.
On the Pantheon, able to just run in, or flash in to be more specific, grab that objective. And now you see with the teleports being used and the threat of that Grand Starfall and all of that pressure you mentioned, SGR not able to exhibit it as you see Mags. He will no longer go where he pleases as that passive is turned off by Rainy Days, but I think they might be putting themselves a little bit too far forward here as there's a lot of damage that could come out, but never mind. Night Ravens is here and so much coming through. This Fiora is running the game, but does go down. Grand Starfall will give them access to the backline. Ratchet flashing forward onto Yunara, and they will go down. Double kill for Pengu. Exodia trying to find an angle, but there's just nothing there. Marcotte is in a horrible position, running away from Tibbers, trying to find a place to just back. And it will be the second dragon for WiWiWi.
I'm starting to realize a pattern here, Jack, on these dragons. The first 2 are just completely fake, but in all honesty, kind of going back to how that all started, Mags walking up, he didn't have the maximum dosage, thought he was tankier than he actually was, thought he had more sustainability than he actually did. He goes down, Night Raven trades his life for it, but that gives an opening for the rest of WiWiCats to enter the fight because they put so much pressure onto taking down the Fiora. They invited the other members to just go ham on the back line. They find another kill, they secure themselves the dragon, and it is now at an even state with those Drakes. That bot side win con is all tied at 2-2, but the big thing is still that Otacon going over to WiWiCats. I think that is what pushes them over the edge right now, Jack, if I had to say.
Yeah, and it's not only a pattern in this game for Mags. If you remember back to game 1 on the Ivern, was caught in the front line multiple times. This game, you know, there's no Daisy for Mundo to rely on. Just has to put those shoulder pads on and run forward in that business suit. Night Ravens does get taken out at half health before they even know that they're in a fight. Riposte will come through too late. The Grand Challenge will result in a decent heal, but it won't be enough in the end as we are seeing them try to transition what they just got on the top side into mid lane pressure as Hazem is in the bottom lane pushing that in. And I think it's important to showcase too, before we get into our next fight, Pengu is massive now at this point as Conceit does get that Scuttle Crab, and this will
Hazem's on the backside
from the flank, and the front line is trying to do their best. Rainy Days will go down and Pengu has to retreat, meaning they will give over the life of Conceit, but they walk back forward. A little curious as to how their
cancel the Valkyrie.
Huge Tibbers comes through, but Yunara has now transcended, activating that ultimate. The stun will come through and the concussive blows, and as soon as we had an ounce of daylight, they throw it all away over a Scuttle Crab.
They just thought they were able to be in that bot side. They didn't have vision on Hasm, but the Aatrox wraps around, gives SGR the numbers advantage, and they take the fight win. Baron going to be on the menu, and SGR with Conceit down for another 10 seconds should have no difficulty taking this, but there's some low health bars, and Night Raven is here. He's got the grand challenge.
I mean, but he's not going to be able to use most of it if he just gets concussed right on the front line. No damage comes through. Tengu goes way too far forward.
Mags is so low.
Aren't going to be able to do anything. Rainy Days going in now, just trying to be as much of a nuisance as possible, and the disjointed attempt at a steal will fail. SGR again crawl back to a winning position.
I feel like Disjointed is putting it lightly, Jack. They go in one by one, but they fall one by one like dominoes as SGR turn the game around. They secure the Baron on all 5 members. And WiWiWi Cats had the ball in their court. That glimmer of hope, like you said, Jack, but it immediately gets snuffed out.
I hope that Rift Scuttle Crab was worth it. They did secure it, but what did it cost them as their 2 most fed members, the Fiora and the Corki, go down in that attempt? And now Mags, 3 full tank items. Aurora about to get the Rabadons. Infinity Edge for Yunara. With this Baron push in the bottom lane, so much standing gold to be earned in this push alone. That first turret taken onto the tier 2. Hasm already wrapping around, but Rainy Days, if they can get this pick off immediately, this would be huge for the ensuing fight. Killed immediately is Hasm. No response will be found in the team fight sense. They will get the tier 2 turret, but that is going to dissuade a further push. Never mind about dissuading. We are going full fledged forward. Grand Starfall will result in Conceit losing so much health from Exodia, but the triple knockup will be incredible.
They can't get onto them.
Rainy Days dies on the side lane. Another kill goes to Marcote. The Tibbers will be useful in stopping them from going forward. Exodia will pick up another kill. It's a 2-for-1. And you know what I said about Hasm's death, meaning they couldn't push forward? Well, the death of your mid laner and support will certainly make that an availability again.
And it felt like WiWiWi Cats had a decent angle, right? You had Rainy Daz on the side, and you had your jungler coming in, but I feel like Marcotte with the Braum Glacial Fissure provided so much time for them to just single out Rainy Days without the Nautilus getting necessary follow-up from his flank. So they take him down, they find Ratchet up a little too far, and he goes as well. Now SGR are going to be able to go back to this dragon, fall back on all the pressure that they have exerted with this Baron. They've got so much prio, so much vision around this bot side. WiWiWi Cats just can't step up to this bot lane, and that soul point win con that has eluded them for 10 minutes, Jack, finally should be in their clutches.
And in my opinion, one of the most important members of that last fight, Exodia, dealt so much damage to whoever they landed their spells on. Now has the Rabadons completed.
Yup.
The Cloud Drake is secured, and with the low range on WiWiWi, with their inability, at least so far, to link up and put all their damage and CC down at the same time, I mean, how are they going to find a winning angle when they're running in between worlds, getting just eviscerated when they go forward? Ratchet has been able to find some decent Tibbers angles, but again, just the follow-up has never been consistent. And when you're approaching a Baron in 2.5 minutes, I feel like this has to be the moment where you lay out your plans. You have time to push in your lanes, to secure your jungle camps, and to really formulate how you are going to win this upcoming fight. And if they don't do it now, I don't feel like there's going to be another opportunity.
I definitely agree with you on that front, Jack. And that Baron buff now falling for SGR means that they will lose a little bit of power in the sieging, and obviously they don't have the soul yet. So they're going to have to be a little bit careful. Obviously, they have a gold lead of about 7,000. So when it comes to a team fight, they should be able to win. But they don't have any of those big game-defining, game-warping objectives or win cons in their clutches at the moment. So I do think they are going to have to be a little bit more laid back for the next 3.5 or so minutes, unless there is an opportunity potentially on this side lane. As we can see, WiWiWi Cats are all around this area to start a fight with numbers.
And it makes sense. If you expend all of your members to try and get vision control on the top side, those wards are just going to be replaced as the Hex Flash will come over the wall. Night Ravens has a lot of damage to give, but the healing can be matched. On the other side, Ratchet, with an absolutely heroic performance, takes down Exodia. They will be dead for 50 seconds, and now getting into the bush. The teleport will come through.
Say.
Great usage of the blue orb.
Oh boy.
It's going to be used. Stops at the turret is extremely ramped up, but Ravens will get out of the way before that damage can really set in. This will be a tier 2 turret, but what will the cost be? They'll lose a tier 2 on the other side at Mags, completely unbothered, just running at Pengu. I don't think they have as much tank as they think, though, as Nexus turrets are going to start dealing a lot of damage to Mags, and once again, potentially overconfident they will be able to hit this top turret. But mid turret, I should say, the top turret being hit by the bottom lane. And was that kill on Hasm and that tier 2 worth it? I think not.
I mean, they get that trade, but it did feel like kind of a desperation play where you want to knock down that tier 2 so the minion wave can really find itself up for the dragon. But you sacrifice the inhibitor, right? That inhib is down. Those super minions are coming in. So that prio that you thought you were going to get by taking down the tier 2, that's just not going to exist. Those supers are going to knock down those minion waves like fodder. And this just means SGR have the better preparation going into this dragon in a little less than 2 minutes. And looking at item spikes ahead of time. You mentioned that death cap on Exodia earlier, but as we saw, still very susceptible to getting one shot by Ratchet. And I do feel like Ratchet is probably the champion I'm keeping my eyes on the most. If you can get a one shot on Annie combined with that grand challenge to get the heal, you get the sustain, that is definitely your biggest hope of being able to win a team fight. But it has to be decisive and quick.
We just saw Titanic Hydra completed from Mags. Just refuses to just be a tank. Wants to be able to put out damage too, as they will move on to the bear and complete vision control for the side of SGR. Exodia waiting off on the sidelines. Half health conceit.
Has them behind.
Is starting to do some damage. The Between Worlds comes down, and it will do so much damage. Conceit goes down, and the half health bars for WiWiWi signal a full on retreat. Mags goes down in an instant.
Click your ult.
Trying to turn the game around. Pengu will Valkyrie forward. They want to continue fighting. Full health bars for your 2 carries. Pengu, never mind about that full health bar. It is almost completely gone with Exodia's 2 abilities, and Night Ravens did their job, but they're just not able to lock down any of those members and get those kills.
And they went out on the fight, but SJR, I feel like, kind of blundered that. Has him at a flank, but he completely whiffed it. He missed both of his Qs and immediately got one shot. So the Aatrox gets found almost instantly and blown up by WiWiWi Cats. And then Mags doesn't click his maximum dosage, Jack. He had that ultimate and decided not to use it. Yunara just barriered. So that'll be down for
tried to prevent any damage from coming in and canceling the recall.
Yeah, but that's a summoner you won't have for this upcoming dragon. And this is Soul, Jack. This is the game-defining win fight. If you want to win, you've got to take this victory right here. WiWiWi Cats, if they can win this fight and keep some members alive, it's not only the denial of the soul, but potentially a Baron right after. But SGR, they win this fight. They won't need a Baron. They will go straight for your base and get the 2-0. All of it riding on this objective.
Mags really living up to that corporate Mundo. Been playing fast and loose. Bought an insurance package for the Aurora with that Medjai's coming through. If they don't win this fight, at least going to be able to get some stacks on it. There will not be a Dragon Soul for SGR. They fight as them activates the ultimate, running down Rainy Days. He's been the one to get caught out all game. He will go down, and it is a 4v5 push. Never mind, they are going to use these numbers to secure themselves the Baron.
I like this a lot. You didn't get like a huge fight win. You only took down one member, but they're going to use that 30-second death timer in their favor. They're going to go onto the Baron. Hasm is on the bot side, but he has TP. He can join it for the fight if the situation calls for it. But WiWiWi Cats have to be careful about overexerting. If they all go down, the Aatrox will open up the map, open up your base, and Conceit opens himself wide open to get taken down by SGR.
Conceit just going ballistic. Ratchet now getting caught out in the jungle. They are falling apart, tearing at the seams. Conceit just trying to buy as much time as possible. Marcotte takes another kill. This is Carry Braum you're seeing here and now. 2 members down.
He's the only unkilled member in the game. How many times can you say the support was the only champion not to die? There's still a little bit of game left though, so maybe WiWiWi Cats can turn that around, but Rainy Days just immediately evaporates.
It is the 2 Fed members, and they're going to have to go all out. Night Raven's trying to put out damage, but Mags just runs down Corki and Fiora. And again, it wasn't the prettiest, it wasn't the cleanest, but it has the same outcome. SGR take a 2-0 lead and will head to match point.
The series determined here early, the 3-0 on the horizon for SGR. And I agree with you, it wasn't the cleanest. Hasm getting bullied in the early game, but really what made up for it, you gotta take a look at this bot side. Exodia, Bobby, and Markov performing so nicely in that second game, particularly Exodia on that Aurora, obviously getting one shot a couple of times by the Annie, but still being able to dish out that damage, finding those angles, getting onto those flanks, and really being able to burst down some of these backliners. Nice game from him, and you can see the damage graph reflecting that Aurora carry.
Yeah, and it's times like this I like to do a little bit of retrospective to the draft phase to see how well you're able to execute on the Rift. You pick that Yunara Aurora early. That is going to be the core of your damage. You'll build a team around facilitating for those 2 champions, and 34.5k, almost 30k damage for those 2 carries. Feels like you executed pretty damn well, as Mags also showing up again on the damage charts. And to jump now over to WiWiWi, they've been in these games. As you see, the gold graph is near even up until 25 minutes. But what it feels like now that they've adjusted their strategy, picking a teamed comp that really complements their play style, the thing they're lacking is the most difficult thing to pick up during a series, and it's communication. They are not on the same page. They are disjointed. Their timers are off. Their tempo isn't aligned. They really have to have a talk in this break to figure out how they're going to get, you know, actual team fights on their terms in this third game and every game preceding it.
It feels like they're able to get, you know, some advantageous fights in the early to mid games, but the late games just feel dictated by Stasis Gaming Resurgence. They have the superior team fighting. It feels like their communication, like you said, is reflected better in the execution. And overall, I feel like that is just something that has given Stasis Gaming Resurgence such a good time in the regular season. What has allowed them to be 6-0, 12-2 in game score, because when the chips are down and those team fights are the main thing you have to worry about, they always manage to execute on those. Doesn't matter if they're net even or even slightly behind in the early to mid game, like we saw in game number 1. When they're able to 5v5, that is when they're at their best. And WiWiWi Cat, they have to get over that hurdle if they want to get back into this series. Otherwise, Jack, it's that 3-0 and they're going to be moving on to the semifinals.
Yeah, and while it may have been the expected outcome, certainly not been the series. Hopefully with how exciting this has been, we can get more games, but we are heading into a break into what could be our last game. We'll see you on the other side.
Maybe. 6-0, 12-2. Those are the scores of Stasis Gaming Resurgence's series score and game score, and they are looking to add 3 more wins and 0 losses to that total here in the AML quarterfinals, as they have found themselves up 2-0 over WiWiWi Cats. And going into game number 3, Jack, backs against the wall, what do you think they have to do in order to turn this series around? We mentioned before we went to break kind of needing to fix that team fighting, be a little bit more decisive in the late game, but a little bit more granularly, what do you think are the big linchpins that they really need to be harping on in order to turn the tide?
I think they need to not get dissuaded in their drafts. I think their drafts have been fine, and I feel like they are consistently giving themselves the tools to win the game. It's about how they're using them. They have to get on the same page. They have to really, talk about who is going to be calling the fights, who is going to be calling our rotations, who is going to be driving these games. We still have options in the jungle that can make a ton of plays, can be all over the map. I mean, things like Nocturne come to mind immediately that can pretty much do the same thing Pantheon does. They're going to be on the red side now, so they can get last pick for Night Ravens, who, all things considered, he could have gotten an ace in that Baron fight if they were able to get over that wall and chase down the members, so they can still get a good winning matchup for him. And again, Pengu, I think the Sivir, the Corki, it's been well, as we see a recap of last draft. Just for a moment, just keep everyone on their toes. But I think maybe it's time to let Pengu out of the cage and give him something with like a little bit of agency, maybe even like Ezreal. Just something where he can go forward consistently and have some control over how they're playing the game.
Absolutely. I think definitely Bobby has been running this bot lane matchup. Him and Marcotte have been so much more proactive in the 2v2s, and I feel like it's no more evident than the first 2v2 of game number 2, right? Where we saw them in a Yunara Braum lane beat out a Corki Nautilus. I feel like, 9 times out of 10, you run that simulation, it's the Corki Nautilus being able to win that out, or at least it should be. But Bobby and Marcotte, they make the difference, and they manage to get that Yunara scaling ahead. So it feels like the execution is just more on their side from the get-go. And I do think that WiWiWi Cats, Jack, they got to lock in. All right. When it comes down to it, to use the term and to be blunt, lock in. That's what they got to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so much analysis. You got 2 color commentators on here. We could analyze
it for but bottom line, lock in, right?
Play better. Like, I mean, that's just what it comes down to here. And I think they got closer in that game because they were back and forth. It wasn't like game 1 where they were all ahead and then it all fell apart. It felt like they kind of like were scratching and clawing for those advantages that they knew where to play through. It's just that mid game, every single time that mid game hits and they just don't know where to go. So hopefully that was spoken about during the break as we are in the draft phase. The bans, as we just return to this draft, likely to be very similar. Things like Syndra, Udyr are going to be gone. Now we don't have to worry about things in the jungle as much because the Pantheon's gone. I think top lane really going to open up. No Mbessa, or at least it's probably going to be banned again, but no Jax. Now we got Aatrox gone, so now I start thinking about stuff like Renekton, maybe Cassante. Those are probably what's on the table.
Yeah, and so I do think now kind of going in to game number 3, like we said, WiWiWi Cats down 0-2, a pretty underrated value thing that I think can help you turn the tide in these series. Obviously, it's only game 3, right? Most of the champions, your champion pool isn't torn apart and really being delved into deeply just yet. So there are a lot of meta picks that you mentioned, Jack, that are still up, still available. And so I feel like that means the possibility of ease of execution is still there for WiWiWi Cats. You get something simple, you have a team fight comp, it's a very linear team, and you just run with that. You try to go for some of this more complicated stuff, and I feel like when your back is against the wall, that stuff has a tendency to fall apart. You can't afford to fall apart here in game number 3.
I'm really surprised by the Mbessa ban here. I feel like that's something that could have just been first picked taken away, gives Hasm another good lane, but maybe that confidence is shaken a little bit. Kind of got pushed in by the Fiora and doesn't want to just first pick something that's going to get countered anyway. I also have my eyes on Leona here. It has been banned in this series and really remains the only consistent engage support. Neither of these supports play a lot of Rakan, so I don't consider that to be the highest of prio in this game 3. So I wouldn't be shocked either with a Leona first pick just to secure that last guaranteed engage, as the Trundle will come through as a ban conceit, one of his champs with over 100 games.
Azir's open. Azir is open. Wide open if they just want to try and snag that one away. It's one of the few remaining really big, scaly mid lane picks that are in the meta. Talia is obviously the other one, having that Weaver's Wall to roam down and assist some of your team. But I feel like throughout this series, Exodia has been more of a player who calls attention to his lane rather than the guy roaming around, giving attention to other lanes. He has been one of the big carries for SGR across this series. So I wouldn't be surprised if Talia is passed up here for something a little bit more lane scaling and self-sufficient oriented, as SGR not going to give Exodia a pick, but going to give over that Scion here. They banned the Trundle, so I do feel like counters to this character really aren't open at the current moment, but the one that is open is going to be the Gwen. Snipping that Scion down for size, and I like this already from WiWiWi Cats, though that ease of execution that we talked about. Gwen, I wouldn't classify her as simple. I do wonder after the early game what Night Ravens is going to be primarily focused on afterwards.
Yeah, and following it up with more long range and playmaking for Pengu. Won't be let out of the cage just yet, but Ashe does fit with their play style, fits right into what's comfortable for them and allows them to have great pick, great follow-up, long range in the lane. And to jump over to the other side, I like what they're doing for Hasm. I expect this to be in the top lane. They said last game you were able to be useful even... Oh, as Vigo comes and goes. Just jump scaring here a little bit. But the Scion, it could be 2 and 9 like Aatrox was, still going to be very useful.
Okay.
Able to work out, and Vi going to be the pick. Very understandable when you see Ashe on the other side. You have low mobility. The mid laners available are low mobility, so Vi is always going to have options. And I think another reason that SGR may have balked on the Azir first pick is, like I said, Ratchet played 80 carry all of last split, and their solo queue shows pretty much just 80 carries. So the likelihood of them pulling out the Azir is pretty low. Yeah. So you can grab another high prio pick on the Scion, see 2 champs get revealed. We do see the Tristana coming out, still flexible somewhat, but likely to go in that bot lane. And as a AD carry myself, I know that this Tristana does well onto Ashe because of the burst that can come through, but Seraphine does a great job stopping advances. Does a great job of protecting their AC, and this is my cheese picking solo queue Seraphine bottom lane. It's going to be support, not building that AP, but this champion is really strong in my opinion.
This is like the perennial middle finger champion in like games 4 and 5 of a lot of Fearless, where you just checkmate them via range, and it feels like WiWiWi Cats are kind of looking to do something similar. You've got a lot of poke with Ashe and Seraphine, and I think the onus is going to be on SGR to cover that distance. This really does give me flashbacks to game number 1, where we had a very long range comp and a composition that could struggle to try and get onto some of those backliners, but I feel like it's less of a concern here going into game number 3. You've got the rocket jump, you've got the unstoppable onslaught, you've got so much mobility in the picks that you have already thrown down. So now I feel like the big thing for SGR going forward is just trying to get another win con tied to this Vi, where both Scion and the Vi can really play around it. So Trist, I would imagine, going to be linked up. They're probably going to give another carry champion over to Exodia, but that also means they might have to blind it because WiWiWi Cats are on the red side.
WiWiWi Cats were in this exact same position, and they last picked jungle in game 1. Let's hopefully not see a repeat of that. I'm not showing favoritism to any team. I just don't like weird draft strategy is. The Nocturne will get taken away. That was a champ that we highlighted for WiWiWi as high priority. I want to see them ban the Leona as well, really take away those support options that could be extremely synergistic with the comp they have now, would force them into a potential Rakan angle if they wanted engage, but against Seraphine Ashe, Rakan is really not going to have a fun time, just going to get poked down, going to get taken very low. And I think that this is a game where SGR might just have to do the boring thing and just say, all right, Taliyah looks good here. Taliyah can follow up pretty well, can prevent engages at range, has decent range itself. And then for WiWiWi, not to get too deep in the prediction games as we wait for these second phase bans come through, but I think Hwei would be a good mid-range.
I raise you like LeBlanc could be really good in this game. There's a good amount of lockdown, and you talk about the immobility, the Tristana's attempts at trying to one-shot them. LeBlanc is a much more I would say safe guarantee that assassination can really come through. So wouldn't hate if that was unironically locked in here, because I don't think they really want for sustainability, want for consistency, because I think Vi and Sion provide that. You want for more damage at this point, the ability to get onto this backline. LeBlanc provides both, so I wouldn't hate if that was picked up here. And now WiWiWi Cats are gonna throw us a bit of a curveball. It's the Orn horn being sounded. If you talked about this a couple patches ago, I would say, oh, it's Orn top and Gwungle, but Orn did get buffed to the jungle as they are going to go the Taliyah. So I said I would have preferred more bursty type champions, but they're going to provide us with that in the top lane, or in the
I don't know where, but I'm popping off because in my head I was like, dude, LeBlanc is great, but Sylas stealing Seraphine ults would be insane, and Orn ults, and we're going to have to get a little catch up here as the Sylas, we don't know for a fact if that's going in here, and the Taliyah coming through makes sense, especially after seeing that Orn pick. They're going to want to go forward and capitalize off of that Call of the Forge God. It's going to be harder when you're doing it through those rocks. Victor makes a lot of sense as well, because you're able to put out long range damage scales alongside the Ashe and the Gwen. But I gotta know where this Sylas is. It is Sylas support.
right.
Marcotte, I wouldn't trust any support to do this, but this is a player in Marcotte who has been with this organization since the beginning of the year. If there's anyone I'm going to trust with something more, more difficult, it's going to be Marcotte.
I think Marcotte is going to be the big X factor, particularly for this bot lane. We talk about Pengu and Rainy Days as, hang on, Haslam, you have to be a little bit careful. WiWiWi Cats have wrapped around this blue buff, and we've got
this is absolutely disgusting. I'm over here trying to
Mags, don't go into that bush. Mags, no!
Consistently will find themselves caught out. The flash will be very well positioned, and the damage will not come through in the end. It is just going to be flash traded. All right, back up now, because we also have to address, with the random jungle buffs to random champions we always see, it is Orn jungle for Conceit, and now with Orn jungle with Spellbook. This could be a nightmare. If there's I was talking about Marcotte getting Sylas and me trusting that. If there's any jungler I trust with a more newish pick, maybe not as practiced, it's going to be Conceit.
Sure. I think Conceit, the big thing that I'm looking at here is just not over-forcing plays, right? You as Orn, you're really slow. You don't have a lot of innate setup, so you have to be relying on your lanes to really get you into a position where a lot of these ganks can come through. As Marcotte is melee range against the Seraphine, and we do have a pause coming through here, which gives us a little bit more time to talk about these drafts. We did go very quickly from draft into game, so much so that the Victor pick, we could already hear the snow music when it was selected. So I mean, yeah, looking at these compositions so far as we are back to live, I mean, the big thing is Marcotte has to cover that distance and be really on it at all times, as we do see he's going in.
Oh, but that's the benefit of having an assassin mid laner as your support, able to turn that around and go in. Pengu is only level 1, does still have barrier available. Tristana, no barrier, just having the cleanse. But this could quickly turn in WiWiWi's favor. if Pengu is able to get another volley off onto Marco, who does have the health pot ticking. You know, these are all of the incredible analysis that you can do when Riot hands you the secondary pause after the initial pause. But another thing to quickly point out in this bottom lane is Seraphine's synergy with Ashe is so incredible because those beat drops that snare if the target is slowed, it's near constant, I should say, when you have an Ashe in that lane as well.
Sure. I think Ashe and Seraphine, we talk a lot about priority relative to this bot lane, and I feel like WiWiWi Cats are going to really have that advantage going for them into this game. As hang on, we're going in.
They are going forward. The beat drop will come through, and the abduct will not land, as so much damage from Pengu will force the flash out of Marcote, and potentially more to come onto Tristana. Night Ravens going forward, and that shroud will not be pushed back enough to prevent the knockup from coming through. So just going to be a trade. Even CS in the top lane. In the jungle, it will be even once red buff is taken. The mid lane's even. I mean, across the map, tons of trading, but no clear advantages being taken just yet.
Yeah, nothing too crazy happening, though. Megs did cut his pathing and is now looking for an opportunity bot, but Marco and Bobby are both very, very low.
I mean, it does make sense. They're going to jump forward, and the abduct will come through, but the beat drop will lock them in place. It will result in kills for SGR, but one will come in return, and it will go into Seraphine's pocket as Night Raven. You now have a stationary target. Hazel just gets snipped down, but the ghost will be procced, and it won't be enough. Night Ravens gets out, and all the way from the ADL, Night Ravens consistently improving throughout the course of this year.
Yeah, Night Ravens gets a solo on the top side. This gets the Gwen ball rolling, but crucially, SGR on the other side getting themselves 2 kills. Really good decision making there from Meg to say, hey, it's not worth it for me to get level 4 and go for these Krugs. They don't have flash. I'm going to abuse this and look for a play to alleviate some pressure for my bot lane. It pays off. It's a kill over to the Vi, a kill over to the Tristana, and now the pendulum has swung significantly for SGR on this bot side. They get those items and can really start to be in the face of this WiWi Cat duo.
Yeah, and the advantage on the top side for Night Ravens, having that extra damage and attack speed coming through with the recurve bow, only the null magic mantle able to be picked up from Hasm, and Night Ravens showed off what I think is the most important skill, as they just take a ton of damage there from the furnace, from the soul furnace, I should say, but showing off in that last exchange what I think is the most important skill a top laner in competitive play have, and that is the ability to know exactly how much damage you can put out at any moment. That's what gives you solo kills. That's what gets you advantages in trades, and knew that they didn't have to stack up the snip, just use it right off cooldown. You'll get the kill on the Scion. And off topic, but still talking about these matchups, when we see these jungle buffs come through on a bunch of champions, it's hard to really drill down and figure out which ones are going to be most meaningful. As Night Raven going to go all the way in, but takes so much damage off the rip and not able to hit the needlework means that this probably won't be as easy as they want it to be. Flash away from Scion will keep them alive, but Snip is all the way stacked up once again. They don't have Ghost for an easy escape, but
here we go.
In the bottom lane, there is no escape for Pengu as they are eliminated. Flash forward from Mags will get the kill onto Rainy Days, but Conceit is here, will get a kill back in return, and this Ornn has yet to go back to base as far as I've seen, but utilizing that Ornn passive to continuously buy items, as now Marcote able to get that abduct, and really ignoring the fact that, you know, it's a fun pick, it's a unique pick, but you're still playing Silas into a double-ranged bottom lane. Really has not shown that to be a great hindrance, though.
And now you can see Conceit maybe looking for a re-engage with the Ornn Horn.
The buffer will come through on the rocket jump, and they will get nothing for it. Actually, they might be able to grab a sneaky dragon with the tempo that they just got. It does look like that's the plan.
I mean, Exodia is pushing in mid here, and you can see that Megs is already back on the map. They could try to run interference and maybe at least get them off of this objective, but I think with Pengu and Rainy Days joining up, it's just really difficult to actually punish this Ornn. They're actually going to realize it, maybe stall it out in time for Marcotte and Bobby to get in here, but doesn't look like that'll be the case. Instead, they're going to go for a cross-map play. They're going to go toward that top side. Mags has yet to hit level 6, and I really think that once you can get that cease and desist, that is the timer that you as Vi need to use to just rain absolute hell on this bot lane of WiWiWi cats.
Yeah, I mean, you see how much they're able to do without the cease and desist. It's going to be even more destructive once that ability is unlocked. It will be the dragon for WiWiWi, who we've seen consistently in this series able to get early objectives. And even this game with a losing bottom lane, that is one of the markers I look for in high-level teams, is your ability to find permanent advantages based on just tempo alone. So they get that loot, they lose a fight bottom side, they get a trade onto Ornn, and they're able to turn that after an extended chase into a dragon. So very well done on WiWiWi, now on the back foot in this game, still also on the back foot in the series, obviously on match point for the rest of the series, no matter how long it goes. And back to the mid lane as we see Victor having a great time right now.
Yeah, so far the Victor hasn't been too hard punished in this matchup. Victor, obviously, one of the things you have to warn against whenever picking this character is just how susceptible he is to getting put into a position where he can get ganked and get collapsed onto by the support, by the jungler. But Ratchet really hasn't given them that opportunity just yet, though. With that cease and desist now unlocked for Mags, maybe he will find some type of a chance. Speaking of Mags, just going for those grubs, so it will be a trade of those objectives in a much more cut and dry game than what we've seen so far in the earlier stages of this series, Jack. A trade of objectives is a very common thing in League of Legends, but very much so has not been common in this series so far.
Yeah, I mentioned being able to take objectives based off tempo is really impressive, but Mags just recognized, I've got the push in mid, I've got the push in top, I'm just going to take these grubs because there's no one who's going to stop me. Grabs all three of them, which also hasn't been extremely common in this series. We've seen a lot of trades 2 for 1, but now all three secured. That's going to make Sion's life so much easier. This bottom lane can really take advantage if they get any more 2v2 kills, as with that Seraphine ult in pocket, I have no idea what's going on with that character model, but this is a very scary place to be.
He's feeling the music.
Yeah, all of a sudden the range that you had to your advantage as WiWiWi, you're just now terrified of Sylas jumping on your head, and he's going for it now. Does hit the encore onto Sarah.
Oh my god.
Huge! Tristana gets knocked up, cleanses so they can use the rocket jump, but too much damage has come out already. They will die to the ignite from the spellbook Ornn. And what a turnaround from WiWiWi.
And such good tracking there from Conceit, by the way. He knew that Mags was in the area. He knew SGR would look for something aggressive. He was primed and ready to go. And he calls the Ornn Horn to knock down the SGR members in the bot lane. Marcotte will escape. Now, though, Night Raven, this is just kind of what we have been expecting all game long, where the Gwen should be able to free hit in this matchup, but has him similar to the... Oh, hang on.
Whoa, Weaver's Wall coming through. They're trying to make a big
teleport.
Teleport is coming through from Ratchet. If Night Ravens can stay alive long enough, that Seismic Shove will be huge. They do go down to the end, but it is a 1-for-1 trade. Cease and desist, though, now being the thing. That Ratchet will fall to. Great response by WiWiWi, but the numbers just do not add up, and SGR ends up taking 2.
And now you can see Exodia should have some alone time on the top side. We'll pick up a plate for his effort, though. Night Raven should be here in time to possibly prevent another one from going over to the Talia. It actually looks like that won't be the case, but still, we'll be able to get back to the lane, catch some of this wave. And because SGR overcommitted so much on that top side, it does mean WiWiWi Cats have the cross map possibility here. Ornn Horn is close to off of cooldown, so if Marcotte and Bobby disrespect and get some, less than favorable trades here, they could get dove, as Mags does spot out Conceit on his chickens and will reclaim those for himself.
Yep. And I actually love this first item buy from Conceit. I love the locket coming through. You're getting low econ items on a very high econ roll. You're able to just buy all of your items while you're just roaming around the map. So wanting to be able to help their team as much as possible. Ash on that first item as well. The arrow will go right down the middle, field goal, but it doesn't matter. Marcote is taken down, and just so much CC available to WiWiWi.
A lot of damage. I mean, the initial CC tools that they threw out at the Silas actually didn't end up connecting. It was the damage that made the difference. And now SGR down a man as Night Raven looking for another trade here with the needlework.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, Hazem really just didn't seem to know what he wanted to do there. He's walking forward, walking backwards, never once autoing Night Ravens. In the end, will be another solo kill for the Gwen and the Dragon as Chem Plants will bloom. I think that this is, obviously all of the souls are very good, but this one in particular.
This is a huge deal.
When you have the Gwen sustain, when you have the Ornn, like that.
Seraphine.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge.
And this is what I kind of wanted to talk about. Night Raven's leaving the laning phase now, as we got about 1 more minute until the plates do drop. So I don't imagine much more gold is going to be generated by anyone, particularly on that top side. In that time, means Night Raven's being 3-1 before those plates drop, being able to collect 2 plates. He's very ahead of the curve right now as this Gwen, and that tied with the Mags.
Mags, you ain't supposed to be here, and Marcote, you're not supposed to be back there. What a flank play from SGR. Double kill for the Tristana, who quietly has been extremely far ahead, already stacking those Yuntals. And as soon as WiWiWi have a single step advantage, SGR drag them all the way back.
And no one's on the bot side, so 3 grubs plus a Tristana. This will give so much more gold over to a Bobby. As we can see, Conceit is looking for a trade in mid.
It's going to be the return kill. Good flash from Ratchet to get out of the way of any threaded volleys that may have come their way. Conceit, a part of another successful kill. Meanwhile, now the turret has fallen. First turret will be secured by SGR, and this Tristana is going to be a nightmare. Feats also available as Mags once again just gets caught out for no reason. The only consistent thing throughout this series, throughout every single game, is Mags finding a way to get caught, and that is going to be a bit of an equalization in the bottom lane. Still don't have that tower, but they're going to be able to push in very deep here.
Yeah, they should be able to get some damage. I don't imagine with the Tristana, you know, you've got that wave clear with the bomb, so they should be able to clear this out. Conceit also not having the ultimate. I don't think they'll be able to claim this tower.
I don't know if they will be able to. Tristana obviously can have so much wave clear with that explosive charge. Another threaded volley comes to the top side, but Night Ravens tries to dash out of the way of the silo and dashes through the unraveled earth. So well done from Exodia. Even if they aren't winning in their lane specifically, they're able to affect the map so well. And now Ratchet gets slowed by that roar.
The shove connects.
Backwards, Exodia doing so much. Hasm will get the kill. Encore from Silas.
Oh my god.
And I mean, the original's decent, but the cover's pretty good too. Silas with that encore will result in a kill onto the Seraphine. Conceit now in trouble on the top side. And I mean, we're just playing volleyball. Bot lane has a play, top lane has a play. Pengu now will eventually die to that little cloud. So happy. Barrier will try to stop it, but the flash buster shot in response.
Into a much more even state.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that's really scary if you're SG or if you're WiWiWi here is SGR has always been calm. They've always been composed, and Bobby is a player who's capable of staying patient when they have the tools to go in. So if the Call of the Forge God and the Encore is put out, what do they have to stop Tristana from just Goomba stomping their way through the entire team fight? They have the Infinity Edge. They have
Exodia?
What was Exodia doing there? Call the Forge Guard will come through and certainly get a double knockup. Kill onto Exodia, kill onto Bobby, and again, just they throw it all away.
Yeah, I mean, Exodia goes in with the Weaver's Wall, but he's got no vision around that area. He knows that WiWiWi Cats are off of the map. He has to assume that they're on the bot side, you know, setting up for the dragon, but he just full sends it. Not only does he die, but the Tristana Bobby goes down as well. So your main win condition gets shut down, and it's soul point for WiWiWi Cats off of what felt like the most illegal play, arguably, of the series, Jack.
They want to turn it into a play on the top side. Night Ravens, though, doing a good job respecting, but just going to get killed in between their two towers. Play safe, bro, as Night Ravens goes down. They do secure the soul point, but in response, SGR will get that tier 2, get a crash onto the inhibitor turret. Luckily, Rainy Days is here. Never mind. Doesn't really mean anything when you got Demolish still in your pocket, as the inhibitor turret as well will go down. We'll hit a double root on that beat drop, but Pengu not wanting to go too crazy here, as we have somewhat of a reset on the map, and this top side is just blown wide open.
It is, and you can see, and no one is actually catching that wave. Night Ravens, I would imagine, is probably going to be there to get those minions, but this opens up SGR for a lot of these cross-map plays. Otacon will be coming up in about a minute and a half, so if they can just, you know, pull a ton of attention from WiWiWi Cats into the top lane and make it so they have to clear these waves and not have as strong a vision around this objective on the other side of the map, that will give SGR maybe an opportunity to find a pick before it spawns, to get a numbers advantage before starting up this Otacon.
As we see Otacon spawning in 50 seconds, Marcotte still lurking, trying to find some picks. And, you know, this is another pattern we've seen throughout this series. No wavering from the side of SGR. Oh, again, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, the original from Ash, so much better, and Marcotte will get caught trying to steal WiWiWi's style. Never ends up working, and now they're trying to take mid priority back, but it looks like Exodia will be able to clear that all out, and with no objectives on the map just yet, looks like they're going to just try and get some pressure onto Otacon.
Yeah, they're going to set it for Otacon, but I do think that, you know, I don't like to use this term very often, Jack, but it was possibly a good death, because they use a lot of their ultimates, and now, I mean, SGR, they can try and fight for this, and they have all of their R keys available. Here we go.
It's going to be a 4v5 no matter what, but a great ultimate by Sion. You're only hitting the front line, though, as Otacon will continue to shred everyone's armor down. Talia doing so much. Otacon is secured by Victor. Night Ravens has gone down, so it is a 4v4 in the pit, but so much damage from
Marcotte is on the left.
Is down. Huge knockup from Conceit. Pengu is just shredding them all down, but it doesn't matter. Marcotte on the back line with the Encore will get the CC necessary. Conceit is shoved back, and Ratchet is the only member still alive. Flash forward with that Arcane Ray will not be enough. They go down. Ace for SGR in a very dirty Otacon fight.
And you talk about the original being better, but I raise you the remix, Jack, as Marcotte gets the angle, finds the Encore, and SGR, they don't get the Otacon, but they win the fight. They'll claim the mid tower. The game is wide open for them on this bot side, and it'll be so useful in allowing for them to set up for this dragon in about 90 seconds. This will be soul if WiWiWi Cats can claim it.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be another chaotic, dirty team fight for WiWiWi. They only have those two AoE team fighting tools in the Encore and the Call of the Forge God. That Enchanted Crystal Arrow, much more narrow in its focus, but Conceit really has shown the ability to find more angles. A huge searing charge in that fight almost made the difference, as Night Ravens hopping onto this top side. Has TP as well. But Conceit is also up here. They have the spell book. They change it over to Ignite. They really are trying to look for a kill onto Scion, but Mags is hovering. Very well done. Will prevent any shenanigans from coming out, and looks like we are just going to reset with 40 seconds, return our focus to this dragon.
You can see dinging level 14 means he can start upgrading some of those items for his teammates. You can see, I think he's going to give possibly a big boy Kraken over to Pengu, so this Ashe will be hitting a little bit harder going into this dragon fight. This really is kind of the timer that SGR were warned against, where you have to deal with Gwen scaling, you have to deal with the ornaments, and now you possibly have to deal with the soul. I feel like all of these confluences linking together, maybe just too much for SGR, but they can stop it all right here and now as Hasm is getting engaged onto.
Encore onto Mags and onto Marcote will be a kill immediately. Marcote trying to find an ultimate to help them out. The needlework will push them out of the river, and just such a sketchy start. Oh no, Ratchet, what are you doing, dude? Way too far forward in the mid lane, and now it is even. Mid lane for jungle is the difference. Conceit will just smite Scion right in the front, but the beat drop is huge. They snare every single member. Night Ravens buster shotted into the pit. Marcote is down. Next up is Scion, but first he'll hit a massive knockup. Night Ravens diving onto the backline will just be killed, and now Tristana starting to feel it, starting to go forward. Scion finally goes down. Conceit has to try and get the dragon. It will get killed by Pengu. Tristana jumps forward, about to get the kill onto Pengu. Pengu back forward. Quadra kill for Pengu out of the cage at last.
Pengu goes crazy in the fight, the upgraded Kraken Slayer, and he tears SGR asunder on the Ashe. Should be able to claim this mid lane tower as a result. Soul acquired for the WiWiWi Cats. Ornn upgrades available and ready to be distributed. Christmas came early for the WiWiWi Cats, and this could be their road to salvation here in the quarterfinals. Jack, the scaling might have just crossed a threshold that SGR cannot compete with.
It may have, but I hate to be the bearer of coal, the bringer of bad news. Take a look at Ratchet's inventory. Just absolute. This is a goodwill victor right now. Needs gold so desperately to get towards some more items. Has to get a little bit more damage as Talia is about to complete their Rabadon's death cap. 10 seconds until Baron, and I mean, just so much to highlight going into this next fight, from Pengu's damage output to Rainy Day's ability to hit multi-man CCs so consistently. I'm very happy that Ashe got that Kraken upgrade. This is a champion that obviously interacts with crit very uniquely, and around this 3 item point can output so much damage if given the uptime. As we see now, WiWiWi trying to get in position, whereas on the bottom lane, Ratchet picking up some more waves.
Ratchet really, I feel, is going to have to start being that other late game threat. Obviously, you've got the Gwen, you've got the Ashe, but if you can be kind of this triple threat comp that is, you know, scaling rapidly at this point in the game, as like we said, you have hit that soul marker and the point where Ornn can start upgrading your items. SGR, it doesn't matter how strong Bobby is, it doesn't matter how well he plays these fights, it doesn't matter how much cover Hasm and Megs provide for him, they're just not going to be killable with this Chemtech soul. I feel like all of that is thrown out the window because there are so many game-defining buffs that WiWiWi Cats have in their personnel and in their inventory. The big thing, I think, keeping them from pushing that envelope forward is this Baron threat by SGR, as control over this topside river really becoming the main theme from here on out.
Yeah, and that Chemtech soul becomes even more powerful when you look at the team comp, and Talia being the major DPS. I consider Tristana most of that damage indexed into burst, being able to just explode a single target with that explosive charge. So it's going to have to result, it's going to have to be a lot of uptime that will result in kills, as again, we see WiWiWi taking great advantage of this tempo timer, knowing that those backs have likely come through. We can reestablish vision, push in the mid and top lane. That tier 1 turret in the top side has got to come down if they are going to have an easy time securing this Baron. As Conceit trying to hold the line, keep that vision in place. Mags is going to grab that global blue buff. As Hasm, once again, in a dangerous spot. In that last fight, I really thought that instead of running into the top jungle, they should have just taken that mid turret, really forced WiWiWi into a tough decision. Do we defend? Do we walk forward for soul? In the end, didn't matter. It was a chaotic long.
Conceit is looking for something. He's got the Ornhorn.
Does have it available. Just forces Marcoat and Mags out of there. Wants to get that mid push up and available again. And Ratchet, kind of stuck in no man's land right now, wants to join up for this Baron. It might just get started. They don't have vision on Mags, but if they did and they saw him on Krugs, they would know this is a go. They're going to get the crab, and seeing no one in the area, they might just start this up.
They got no vision.
Start hitting it.
Yeah, they have no reason not to do this. I mean, Megs is on the other side of the map for some reason as this Vi, so the threat of a 50-50 just isn't present. WiWiWi Cats, they're in their own heads though. They're getting off the Baron.
They get off the Baron and they miss everything. They will have the call of the Forge God come down, and it will hit onto Exodia at least, but Mags has now entered the fight. He's an assist, goes onto Night Ravens, and a massive knockup from side, but so much damage coming through. Pengu is just slicing and dicing their way, but the Encore will hit all of them. It won't result in any kills, but it will be enough CC to dissuade a further engage. And I mean, they just stand still and right click the heads of SGR, and it results in a winning fight and the Baron.
I mean, realistically, if SGR can't win that fight, what fight can they win? The Soul plus the Seraphine, that's Sustain doing so much to keep them alive, making them unkillable in the eyes of SGR. And SGR, really, I bet, wishing they had a little bit more pen in their system right now, because it is going to matter going forward in this next fight. WiWiWi Cats secure the Baron, but it's only 20 seconds until the Elder. They're not going to be able to use that Baron buff to get a fair bit of priority, whereas SGR are going to be pulled away from this river. So it is a fight on even footing. The prio is irrelevant, but what is relevant, Jack, is all the buffs that WiWi Cats have going into this fight. They win this, they keep themselves alive in the AML.
Hasm getting so much focus in the front line of this fight. Marcotte off on the sideline. This is where the damaging starts to fall off. Call the Forge God will only land onto Hasm, and Marcotte is now distracting them on the other side. Hasm uses that unstoppable onslaught to get out of the way. They won't find any kills, but they will find a lot of cooldowns used. The only available are a Buster Shot and Vi, but the sustain from that surround sound will be so healing and smooth. Conceit and Night Ravens will shred this Elder Dragon. It is going to have to be a miracle. Mags is on the bottom side being zoned out of the way. They're completely marking the Vi out of the fight, but now they're getting in their heads again. Like you said, they don't know whether they should finish the objective or they should go for the fight. They can't find the angle. The Elder Baron, Elder Dragon has reset to full HP, and the Scuttle Crabs now here's an, hey guys, what's going on? I just got here. And they are going to try and take that one as well, trying to get the vision reestablished.
They see Hasm on the back.
Still hitting the Elder Dragon.
Guys, come on!
Has an angle. They're just gonna leave. They don't even see Hasm.
What is happening?
Now they see him Exodia.
No way! Conceit's alone!
Oh my god, he's just going to die. Surround sound will be enough to heal them. The knockup Max is dead. Now just the Chems Tech Soul too strong. Night Ravens hitting Hasm inside of that mist, and an ult from Ashe will result in Exodia going down. You're seeing the panic in SGR's eyes. They're trying to find a backdoor angle, but once this Elder Dragon dies, they will recall and they will stop this push. Ratchet has already done so. Elder Dragon for an inhibitor turret. I don't like that trade, but I really don't like much about that fight at all.
I absolutely don't either. I mean, WiWiWi Cats, they take so long to pull the trigger that now the initial deaths in that fight, they're going to be able to respawn. WiWiWi Cats with a Baron, an Elder, and a Soul should be able to be in a position where they can just try to end the game right here and right now. But the respawns are coming up to where I feel like SGR can try to hold the line. They've got the wave clear. The Talia will be there. They'll get an inhibitor for their efforts, but I feel like that's all they can go for at this point. If they push further, they risk getting aced and possibly losing the game.
Yeah, but that's not who this team is. That's not what we are made of. They want more. They're going to meet up with Ratchet in this mid lane, try and get a second inhibitor. And by waiting this amount of time, Victor, Ashe, and Seraphine ultimates have come back online. Marcotte, though, trying to find a good angle. They all are revealed on that Scryer's Bloom. All of them are kind of loaded up and together. The Call of the Forge God will land on two. Marcotte taking so much damage, just goes almost enough to go down. Will die on the other side of this Zhonya's, and just walking forward now. The Needlework trying to take Hasm down. They will settle for the inhibitor, but you can tell they want more. They are not satisfied. They are going to get cut off. But don't worry, Exodia. I don't think they wanted to leave anyway. Hasm will try and get into the back line, but instead just going to get locked down from the beat-op, taking a lot of damage. But because he's Scion, it doesn't really look like that much. They don't have minions, though. Exodia doing so well to clear out these minion waves. We just recall. Get the hell out of here. They have another super minion wave in
Marcotte's coming up in 5 seconds.
Hasm is just standing behind them menacingly. He doesn't have his ultimate. He doesn't have many tools available. Finally, they turn, but it doesn't look like they're all going to commit to him. A super minion wave has arrived. This
Elder is going to fall off any second.
Immediately taken down. Elder Dragon buff has about 30 seconds remaining on a call. Will come through. Tristana is going to target to get the first tower down. Second tower is hit the damn Nexus. Pengu, everyone right-clicking it. Ultimates are all coming down. Gwen going into the back line. It doesn't matter. Game over. We take a game.
But it was anything other than clean, if I have to be honest with you, Jack. That was a tense last 5 minutes of the game, and I absolutely don't think it needed to be. Still, though, SGR getting some blood spilt on the floor for the first time in this series. And we'll be going to game number 4, Jack. When we thought they were down, when they were possibly out, when they were at their lowest, they delivered a punch to the jaw, and they're getting back up.
I'm not a play-by-play man. I ain't built for this. This WiWiWi squad, they are so resilient. I mean, even this game, they were down by quite a lot against a Tristana Talia comp that really felt like they could win any fight that they just walked forward in. But Pengu held firm. They were much more patient. They were much more in sync. And it wasn't clean again, but it feels like this is how real momentum looks. Yeah. You don't see them go from no comms to perfect comms. They're getting better. It was still a little sloppy, but you can see the tangible improvements they've made over the course of the game. And I'm happy that they've held firm in their draft philosophy of a jungler that can affect the map, a winning top matchup, a support that can make plays, and a scaling mid lane pick that can stay at range, and also a range pick for Pengu. I mean, we do now have a series on our hands, and the only difference now is we're getting into game 4 of Fearless. There's not as much on the table.
Yep. And honestly, if I had to pick kind of an MVP, a big decider champion player of that game for the side of WiWiWi Cats, I would definitely say Pengu delivered on this Ashe. And we talked about this before game 4 started. We said that Bobby and Marcotte have more often than not gotten the better of them in a lot of these 2v2s. They have been the better performing bot lane in most of these games, but in game number 3 it was looking to be more of the same. I mean, it felt like Mags was getting toward the bot lane a lot more. He was influencing that 2v2 giving the Tristana a lot of openings, but the Ashe and the Seraphine, the persistence in those performances allowed them to find a lot of those enchanted crystal arrows, get a lot of those fights started, chunk out these key targets, and really have great execution when it came to the team fight. So massive shout out there to Pengu for performing when the pressure is at its highest, when you are down in the series, which they still are. Admittedly, WiWiWi Cats have a little bit more of a mountain to climb if they want to move on to the semifinals. So we're not going to waste any more time, Jack. We are going to try and get into game number 4 ASAP, and we will see you all on the other side. And welcome back, everybody, to the AML quarterfinals. My name is Quax. I am joined once again by Jack. And Jack, game number 3, the 3-0 not coming to fruition. WiWiWi Cats fight back with the scaling game that they had drafted in that match and managed to take us to another exciting game here. Realistically, WiWiWi Cats having a little bit of trouble closing out that game. I feel we were kind of at the edge of our seats on whether or not SGR would be able to turn around that situation like they have so many times over the course of the series, but they managed to close it out. Now, though, in game number 4, like we talked about between the games, we're really starting to get deeper into those champion pools, and this can be where a lot of teams get made or broken.
Yeah, and I think we've spent so much time talking about the top lane and the jungle matchups. And as these pools get pinched, right now, all I can think about are these 2 bottom lanes. We only have like 3 engaged supports left. You got Rakan, you got Alistar, and you've got Leona. The AD carries are even lower. They've been really going for all the top tier stuff, but I think Pengu needs to get Caitlyn in this game. Like, they are falling down the charts in what Pengu is really like succeeding on in this series. And at the same time, I don't think Bobby would fare very poorly on Caitlyn either. I think either one of these players can run this game with this champ. And I also think last game was a great example of the risks of grabbing a champ like Silas support. Sure, in the laning phase, in the mid game, you essentially just have 2 mid laners for a short period. But then once the late game hits, you have 1 real mid laner and 1 mid laner who's only have like an item and a half. So yeah, it starts to really fall off. And meanwhile, WiWiWi's bot lane were in concert. I mean, pun intended with the Seraphine. They were just constantly in lockstep across the map, following up with one another. And I would expect a similar level of uniqueness from Rainy Days. I think this could be another Renata angle.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the uniqueness is certainly faltering in the bot lane, so this would be fun to actually see both of these teams prioritize their 2v2 duos, because I think so often in this series historically, we have seen the importance really fall toward that mid jungle, right? Securing those champions, making sure your top side gets some of those really high priority picks. But now, like you said, with the champion pools being pinched, it really puts a little bit more emphasis in that bot lane. So both of these teams maybe having to switch it up a little bit stylistically and pay more attention to the lower half of the map rather than the top half. And I feel like that is going to be a neat little spin here in game number 4. But I absolutely agree with you. I think that Caitlyn is an AD carry that a lot of teams will fall back on, similar to like what we said about the Seraphine in game number 3, where range kind of trumps all and it's a little bit of a cheat code. I think Caitlyn kind of has that same exact school of thought, where you are just so safe in the laning phase, you're able to get so much priority for these more aggressive plays that it unlocks the possibilities that much more around the map for your team relative to the bot side of it. As it does seem like WiWiWi Cats on that blue side, if they want to go the Caitlyn that you've been alluding to, Jack, they could just snag it up first, but wouldn't be surprised if they just stick to their guns and go for something like a jungler or a mid laner, because it does feel like both Mags, Exodia, Conceit, and Ratchet have had a lot of say in this series thus far.
Yeah, and Ratchet, that was the one low point for WiWiWi last game. Ratchet really fell behind, never really found an angle to get back into the game. So do they want to prioritize comfort there? I'm also now thinking of champs like Varus could be decent answers into the Caitlyn. I know that Varus has fallen down in priority. Obviously, beginning of this year, it was the most picked champion in professional League of Legends, but with some nerfs, has not stayed really the top of the top, but still a very viable and good champion to pick.
Yeah.
So even in the first pick, because the 2 builds. But I think this is an angle where we have a very similar situation we've had all series. If this ban isn't Wukong, you just pick Wukong. So that has to be seen. But other than that, as the Wukong ban does come in, I think grabbing your AD carry right now, something Pengu can be useful on throughout the course of the game, wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, Caitlyn, like you said, is an option, but then you could go for something like a little bit more aggressive, like the Lucian. I still think has a couple of his pairings still available. You think of the Nami being able to sync up with him, and I think SGR now kind of have to, think about this. Are we going to allow them to go Lucian Nami, or are we going to snag up the Nami and try to give him a better 2v2 than Lucian, which... There aren't really any of those left, Jack. I feel like the best you can probably land on is like maybe a Callista or like a Jinx, possibly.
Or we time travel all the way back to 2022 and we go a Felios Lulu and just full on run it back. I mean, it's not winning short term, but over the course of the game, you will scale. It is going to be Misfortune. Trying to match damage output in the laning phase. I think that they will now be able to try and grab one of these last remaining engage supports, and the plan has got to just be shut this thing down. This has got to be Leona. Yeah, it's got to be Leona. This is the first game that Pengu has gotten an aggressive playmaking 80 carry. They might want to shut it down, but Jarvan is going to be the grab. I mean, there's no Pantheon, no Xin Zhao, no Vi, no Wukong, so Jarvan really does stand out as the last remaining top of the top 80 bruiser. But Trundle, right there and available, and can see, like I said, over 100 games on this champ, so nothing to shy away from.
And Trundle not only has value in the 1v1 against the Jarvan, being able to match his tempo early on, but the Pillar also cancels the bullet time. So if he can find a creative way to cancel that ultimate, it removes a lot of that team fight power from Bobby on that Misfortune. But still, the question plaguing our minds is, what will this Lucian be paired up with? I mean, you could go the Melio. I think that rises in priority when you have Jarvan. You could deny that flag and drag. So it's not only a good combination, you do lose a little bit of that laning phase power by going Melio, but you sacrifice it for a bit more safety for the Lucian to move around and not get jailed by this Jarvan.
I think Nami might still just be the answer. They are going to grab the Hui. They want Ratchet on something that is not only strong, but also in their wheelhouse. I was going to say the Nami because can also cancel the bullet time with that massive wave, can stop the Jarvan advance, will give you a winning lane, but they're thrown off by the course of this draft. They ban away the Syndra Azir. They know that they're running out of options in that lane, so they've got to grab something strong. This Hui pick has remained strong throughout the course of the year, and I think it's because of the versatility. But now we are getting the fist fights we've been asking for top lane. We're going to get a mid lane. And Exodia has performed extremely well in each and every one of these games. So in this matchup where you have to wait out those first couple levels, but then you get the ability to close the gap, can do so much damage, going to be exciting as the Nami now being taken away.
But it does kind of feel a little bit off theme here for what SGR are going for. Obviously, you get the extra aggression in mid by going that Akali, and also that backline threat is very present for SGR, but it removes a little bit of that threat from the Cataclysm bullet time combo. I was kind of anticipating more AoE to come through here on this mid lane pick, and now I think that SGR, their remaining 2 picks have to be linking up with this Jarvan. Not only that, but giving this Akali those angles to get into the backline. So I think they need to draft another upfront threat that can really get onto the Lucian to buy Akali the time to get some of those public executions into the backline. So I like where WeCat's head is at, where they're saying, you know what, Camille would be really good at locking down this Lucian, so they're going to take that one away. I think that's a really wise choice. I think another top lane ban, if they wanted to, remove it from the possibility, could unironically be something like I don't know, like a Rumble. Galio. I think could be really good. You get that hot pot combo, so that could be really good here. Oh yeah, Rumble is already banned, so that won't be available. There aren't a lot of remaining champions that can synergize well with this Cataclysm, so this goes back to what we said would be a thing in game 4, where you got to dig deep in the champion pools, be a bit more unorthodox.
And Bessa is up and available. Not the cleanest synergy, but still very good at following up with that public execution. Also, it's usually only seen as a counter pick in the top lane, but Galio fares pretty well once you get that Hallowed Radiance. You can wave clear so easily, and I think I like the support focus, though, because you've already got SGR banning away supports. Now you get to ban away a support. You're really pinching that pool. So if Rainy Days has something creative and you can ban the Alistar and really force them into Leona, you now have a melee mid laner. You've got a Jarvan jungle who wants to go forward. You're going to have a melee support, and you have a Misfortune who's going to be stationary in a lot of these team fights. You brought it up earlier. I like Renata here. I think Renata Lucian is a very good combination that allows the Lucian to play much more aggressive than they otherwise would be able to. And with that Leona coming through, this is an angle.
Yeah, I mean, I think Renata is a good shout here, but I'm also looking at what the top lane could be. I mean, like, you could go the Renekton, I think, is an option. The Shen might be an option with how many auto attackers there are on the side of SGR. I think blocking those has a lot of value. The Stand United is also kind of a cheat code to get some of those cross maps on, and I feel like the AML has been a big fan of things. Obviously, we saw the Pantheon in game number 2, the Scion in game number 3. Those really allow you to circumvent some of the tempo that is required for these setups, and Shen would be on theme with that. As yeah, it's just gonna come down to WiWiWi Cats. What will you go? It has to be something that allows Lucian to free hit, allows him to fight, and gives him an opening to really wreak havoc. And I also think if it can synergize well with this Trundle, you can really start to get the ball rolling early, allow this Trundle some early accesses. Renekton is in fact going to be the pick here, Jack.
This is not Mbessa, but also Poppy.
There it is.
I gotta say it because it gets picked on. I don't say it, they're not gonna give me the credit. But Poppy fits so well here. I know it's not what you consider in like a Lucian synergizing lane, but you see a Kali, Leona, Jarvan. It's like, we gotta put Poppy on our team if we can. It just fits so well. And it's also a champion that has other uses. I understand that the steadfast presence is a very strong ability, but you also have the disengage, not only your ultimate, but on your E. You have a decent amount of damage early game with the buckler and your Q, especially when you have Leona who's going to want to go forwards. And the only thing I'm worried about now is on the other side, did they just take the Mbessa and now their team comp is just stacked?
They could also go like Bard last pick here, I think, to set up some of these really effective bullet times. Or that's actually a GP against the Renekton. Game 4 SGR. Asm saying, give me the gangplank. That is a pick we have not seen in a while here, especially at this level, Jack, because not a lot of players know how to play it at this level. It's a very high skill ceiling character. Some would say like top 3 highest skill ceiling champs in the game, but it is a decent pick into the Renekton. If you can space those barrels correctly, it's really hard for this champion to have effectiveness in the early levels when he is considered a lane bully.
Yeah, it's not a perfect 1-to-1, but I consider it kind of like the top lane Azir, where it's like, I think every laner should be able to play it, but if you can't play it, it's super risky because you can fall flat on your face and just look useless. But if you're good at it and you get some of those crit barrels off, you can completely turn the course of a team fight. You can push in lanes so easily, so quickly, and you know, talk about synergy with the Cataclysm. You pretty much make an inescapable zone where if you don't have a dash, you can't get out of the Cataclysm. And even if you do have a dash, you're going to be slowed for a very long time leaving it. And Hasm doesn't even have to be there to do it. So with the entirety of Stasis Gaming's team fight, they have a very clear win condition. Jarvan, Misfortune, Leona set up the team fight, and then Akali just finds their own angles. You want to really split the focus between the core and Akali and Gangplank. Whereas WiWiWi Cats, again, it's one of these comps I see so often at this level, and even at higher levels, where you have a team that wants to run forward. Lucian, Poppy, Trundle, Renekton all want to go forward, all want to fight, but they don't really have the tools to force you to fight them. And then Hui has to just be this artillery mage and put down as much damage as possible.
I mean, Lucian, I feel like the early game is the big thing we have to watch out here for WiWiWi Cats, because you look at the scaling, when you're facing down a Gangplank and a Kali and a Misfortune, you automatically know the ball is not in your court post 30 minutes. So the onus is on Conceit. It's on Rainy Days to make stuff happen. Give Pengu and Conceit these golds early on. I'm losing my mind here because, frankly, we have delved so deep into the pools, and this series, I think, really has been intense at every single corner. Even though Stasis Gaming were up 2-0, I dare say most of these games have not been clean from either team. They have been back and forth, Jack. And game number 4, a tale of opposites in the WinCom. WiWiWi Cats, early game pressure, be proactive, get the snowball rolling. Stasis Gaming Resurgence, get those late game setups and wreak havoc post 30 minutes.
And I feel like one of the subjects we talked about earlier in this series about ease of execution, Stasis Gaming on paper have an extremely strong team comp, but with a Kali and Gangplank as your solo laners, those are two very difficult champions to pilot, especially at this high a level when you're playing against players who should know how to play around them. Now, they do have a stark lack of mobility on WiWiWi Cat side with the Hui, the Trundle, not being able to get out of situations they put themselves in. But other than that, the damage is very simple. And the one other thing to mention on SGR before we fully get into this game, I myself, not a huge Misfortune fan. And if this MF can't find gold and get towards those key items into the mid game, their damage profile is going to look very weak compared to the Hui Lucian that are going to be consistent throughout this game.
Sure is. Loading onto the Rift, and WiWiWi Cats looking for something with the level 1, but just like a couple of games ago, going to be spotted out here by Bobby. So no level 1 available, and this leaves SGR with an open top side to get some of those deep wards down. And we talk about vision, being able to track these junglers as a pretty common theme in the early phases, but I feel like more so than other games in this series, Jack, it matters a lot more because you have two champions who are very active early on. You've got the Trundle, you've got the Jarvan. They want to get around the map ASAP, and being able to tell where they started going to be vital. You can see that ward being placed does get broken, but it also says that Conceit, because of the minion spawns, he is starting on the top side. So they do know at least where this Trundle will be beginning his clear for now.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about the vision trade for junglers at this level 1 stage, and SGR, fortunate enough, they traded info for no info. We have no idea where Jarvan started, whereas Stasis Gaming, they know the path for Trundle. They know where he's going to go, when he's going to be at his camps, when he crosses over to Raptors, they can estimate.
Yeah, look at him go. He's on for the cross map. He's going straight for the red buff, and I think he's going to try and wrap around, look for something. Yeah.
He's done this before on the Mundo, consistently stealing away those blue buffs. And as you mentioned, Jarvan, well known for those level 2 ganks, and we are setting themselves up perfectly for it, pushing forward right away, not really placing down wards, not thinking about the position they may put themselves in early. And if they put in a deep ward here, which they do, that could spell disaster, where you think that you're safe, you think that you have all the information you could possibly have. Meanwhile, Jarvan's taking Krugs behind you. And Trundle, unfortunately, for SGR's chances at a bot gank, Trundle will very soon find out that Jarvan was in his bottom side, but not soon enough.
Ignite dropped.
Rainy Days going to have to expend Flash almost certainly, as Mags will hit the flag and drag, not the knock-up though, as Pengu will dash through, heal expended, and in the end, the gank does finally show, but all they get is summoners out of Rainy Days.
And Rainy Days has the Hex Flash as well, so if he wants to look for some aggressive angles with the wall slam on top of that Timu summoner spell, he certainly has the ability to do so. Conceit is looking for something aggressive here, but likely won't be able to find it. Exodia, though, going in for a trade maybe opens up a door in the mid lane.
But so much damage coming down from Ratchet, and of all of the control mages that Akali is good into, Hui's advantage is so much AoE spell damage that comes through. As I think what Conceit's mostly looking for is just something to trade back for all of the camps that were stolen from them. Trying to contest on the Scuttle Crab, trying to contest on these future camps as Hui gets a deep ward placed on those Raptors. They have not been taken yet, and now we see the Renekton roaming as well. Very well done by WiWiWi, and we mentioned the increased... Oh, but Jarvan smites it away.
Yeah, but I feel like that's all he's going to get. Like you said, Night Raven's roaming with his jungler to try and look for something onto Megs. They're actually going to give up the play for now, so it really doesn't come to fruition. WiWi Cats look for a trade with those camps, and because Meg's got the big one, it doesn't really end up having a lot of value. Now, though, Pengu getting engaged onto...
I mean, just so much damage coming through. First blood onto Lucian, and this is not the first time that we have seen Marcotte and Bobby go for these very aggressive early plays. The only difference is this time Pengu actually picked an early game AD carry that can really stand out in these fights pre 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Pengu getting first blood there. That's exactly where WiWi Cats want to allocate their gold to. Marcotte gives them the perfect angle to do so. And we can see Conceit going to be on his second batch of camps. Hasn't gotten that reset down yet, so I think this Trundle, if he does meet the Jarvan in a skirmish, definitely not going to be favored to actually win that, because Mags on the other side has a tunneler, so item advantage could be the big difference between the junglers at the current moment. Though I don't think SGR have knowledge of that, so they aren't looking for anything too aggressive. That dragon is up, and they aren't looking to burn it instantly, press that issue. Not to mention, they just don't have the priority. Now that Lucian has first blood, I feel like it's going to be really difficult for Mags to work with some of these more aggressive angles, because his lanes are going to be pushed in for the foreseeable future.
Trying to establish some more control in the bottom lane. Most dragons have been taken early based on bot lane prio, and so both teams, being aware of that, do not want that pattern to continue, want more say over when this first dragon is taken. Both teams also have been very conscious about lane swaps, so they don't want to swap without getting something on the bot side first. We do see a return to jungle camp farming for Jarvan, but Trundle just doesn't have anything up and available, waiting for Scuttle Crab now.
My Jarvan's kind of homeless.
Yeah, his mid laner's on a back, so doesn't really have anything to do in the mid lane, just waiting for the Scuttle Crab, and then he's going to grab his blue buff again. Meanwhile, in this bottom lane, I feel like this is an opportunity for... This would be an opportunity for the Lucian lane to go a bit crazy, but the level advantage being there for SGR means it's not really an opportunity there.
They're not going to do anything too crazy at the current moment. And I mean, Mags now, digging level 6, has that Cataclysm available, so could look for a play possibly onto Ratchet, burn that summoner spell off of the Hui. He won't have it for a lot of these neutral objective fights that will be coming up in the next minute or so. The dragon, like we said, unclaimed, but the grub's going to be here in about 15 seconds or so. If you can try and get some of those more granular advantages going forward, it might make the difference between a won fight and a lost fight.
And on this top side, Hasm doing quite well on the gangplank. A little bit behind in CS, but are going to catch up now that Renekton has taken a back timer. Just trying to get scaled into this later portion of the game, working towards that Triforce now. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, have that Hextech alternator for Akali. Pengu gets hit by that double up, and like to see the Misfortune having that first strike. When you have these expensive items early game, like the Bloodthirster, with very expensive components as well, every extra bit of gold you can get is going to be useful. And once again, they utilize their push in the bot lane, they utilize their push in the mid lane to get this first dragon, but it will be traded for Grubs.
Yeah. And I absolutely think that's really good for WiWiWi Cats, honestly. If I had to favor a team getting that objective, I feel like the Trundle with Grubs is absolutely something that can generate a win con. As Mags was seen on that dragon, he flag and dragged over. You can see the pings. They want to go straight for him, but he recognizes he was seen. Good intuition from the SGR jungler to back on their away, realizing he is attempting to be collapsed onto.
I mean, the growth from both of these teams throughout the series should be commended. Mags has gotten caught out in each and every one of these games, trying to do exactly what he just tried to do. So recognizing that he's over a ward, he's getting collapsed on almost certainly, he backs off. And then on the other side, WiWiWi completely collapse onto him, showing at least a somewhat improved sense of communications as Hazem forces out the dominance from Night Raven, does a ton of damage. Hazem does not have access to that orange, won't be able to heal up for the moment at least. Now he does heal up after that exchange, but not the worst trade in the world. Getting that ultimate out for a lot of damage. The Conceit is going to be forced to flash away from the Solar Flare. Also, bullet time expended will result in Skullcrab going over to SGR, but nothing much.
They got the crab. Absolutely worth it, right? That's what we're fighting for at this point, and I feel like that is not what we want to be saying specifically for WiWiWi Cats. We really wanted to see this Trundle and this Poppy push the envelope of the early game a little bit more aggressively, and so far SGR is, oh, hang on, Ratchet does have Flash.
Yep, Spiraling Despair will go down, and the Fear as well. Flash out, waits out the Cataclysm. Tried as long as they could to hold on to the Flash. We'll have to use it in the end, but they did survive, and that's all that really matters in that spot.
This TP as well, so should be able to get back to the lane, but I feel like SGR are really dictating the pace of this early game, and that's absolutely not what we should be saying. WiWiWi Cat should be really just looking for these picks, using this Poppy, using this Trundle, trying to get these angles onto the weaker SGR early game comp, but they haven't been able to do so thus far. They've got the Grubs, but they haven't really been able to use them, Jack.
Yeah, and another issue I'm seeing now, this time on SGR's side, I mentioned earlier not being a big fan of Misfortune. I have no idea what they're building. They have a Brutalizer, which I checked, builds into Axiom Arc, Voltaic.
Yeah, I was going to say Axiom.
That's awful, as Hazem is going to get ulted by Trundle. This is not the best turret dive, but now the Ratchet shows up, gets a little bit better for them, but in reality, just going to be there to just kind of chauffeur them out of that top lane, make sure they don't get caught too deep. And I feel like the only person right now who's itching for a fight really is Exodia. Have the Proto Belt fully completed, really with the Darksteel, want to be going for something, but no opportunities showing themselves across the map.
And you would think maybe he can look for a roam here on the bot side onto Pengu. He's about half HP, and if they can get a wave stacking, maybe it opens up the door for Akali to roam on down there. We haven't seen a lot of that come out here from Exodia, who, because of that item, that Protobelt, like you said, will have a little bit more power to push these waves and really get around Summoner's Rift. But it's so difficult to dive this bot lane. I mean, Pengu, not only does he just get his first item here, you see as the Essence Reaver, but Flash is up. Exhaust is also available for both Rainy Days and Pengu, so your damage is not all going to be coming through. And so that just means it's really difficult for Exodia to find these assassinations onto the bot lane, even if the health bar gave him the green light to do so.
Meanwhile, Axiom Arc is completed for the Misfortune. No Yumus, or maybe they'll go Yumus next, who knows? But for now, they are going to have that bullet time up more often in the coming fights, and with Dragon rapidly approaching, you assume that that's going to be a big motivator in this next fight is Hasm going back and forth. Dominus is still available. They pop the cannon barrage, and Flash will come out from Night Ravens, getting a bit overzealous as Mags has found Conceit. That subjugate will be put down onto Mags, and now Rainy Days kind of finds himself in an odd position. Exodia goes through onto the Trundle, will get the kill. Mags in the end. Rainy Days going to charge up that Keeper's Verdict, but Exodia just walking forward. The bullet time will get the kill, but I mean, they just can't fight into this Akali right now.
And Conceit, I feel like, not recognizing how surrounded he was in that exchange. I mean, Mags gets the good flag and drag. I was kind of curious on why he wasn't exfiltrating after the subjugate was used. That puts his life in a really precarious spot, as his life is still in a precarious spot.
Mags is extremely low. The Spout Despair did so much, but Marcote following up on the Leona. Exodia does not have access to the perfect execution, but it won't matter because they've got a Leona with them, so they'll get the kill. Marcote continues to be just seeing red, going for these kills, and now, I mean, this is about the cleanest early game we've seen out of SGR so far.
Yeah, they've kind of struggled in the first 15 minutes. Throughout this series, I certainly agree with that. Really, their strongest has been around the 25-minute mark when they're able to group up as 5, and they grouped up as 4 there, so it was close enough. They got the fight win along with the second dragon, so that Seoul win con keeping itself alive here for SGR, which is much needed because, like we said, Jack, in the draft, this is the composition that likes to scale, likes to play around some of those late game item breakpoints. A Gangplank with 2 to 3 items plus a Soul is going to be an extremely scary threat, and that's the most inactive member of SGR so far. The GP hasn't had a lot of action. Meanwhile, everyone else on SGR is actually pretty accelerated compared to their counterpart.
Yeah, it's gonna have to come down to a pick for WiWiWi, which SGR haven't been completely against giving up to them, as Blackstone is used. Rainy Days thought about doing something ridiculous there, but their better judgment.
Ooh, teleport coming through.
Teleport across the map from Night Ravens. Ghost has been procced from that unsealed spell book, and we are going to get a full-on fight. Pengu in a very odd position, half health just about on the Rift Herald as Pengu rejoins the majority of their team as they...
Mags has empowered Smite if it comes down to it.
It's going to get reset. As you mentioned, the Smite is upgraded for Mags fully, but can see Exodia just don't want to wait any longer. Goes through, but just about almost dead. Will die.
No.
He's still alive. The subjugate going off, getting them more health. Mags also will go down to Night Ravens. There will be a trade back onto Hasm with Rainy Days dead. It's a 2 for 2. No one gets the Rift Herald, but I have a feeling that this fight is not over yet. Hasm walking forward, wants to clear this wave. Marco will land a stun of their own with that Eclipse going down. Very tanky, but Misfortune caught out in an odd angle, but did they go too far forward?
Pengu!
The wall. Hasm will get the kill onto Pengu. That's 2 now, and now with Misfortune, Bobby getting that one. They were a bit patient, and it resulted in everything they could have asked for.
And honestly, I mean, Pengu getting hit by the bouncing bullet is what made that fight. It reinvigorated SGR to continue forward. The flash coming out from Marcotte, from Hasm, to press the fight even further. It was a 2 for 2, but SGR pulled the trigger on the re-engage. The bullet finds its target, and SGR are up in kills as the comp that scales, Jack.
Yeah, and I mean, not only do they have a comp that scales, they're facing a comp that falls off. When you look at Renekton, when you look at Lucian, Trundle, even with no tanks on the other side.
What the? Where are you going, Harold?
Harold's in a weird spot. He said, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going back to my house. And does get a little bit of health back.
Oh my god, stop charging!
Charge. Their patience bar still hasn't filled up either, so there was another bit of reset that came through there. As, I mean, it really doesn't matter what your opinion is of Misfortune. If she's 3-0-3 and about to complete a collector, she's strong. It doesn't matter. So that combined with the fact that Hasm is about to get a Mortal Reminder and start stacking that crit, this is a very, very scary spot to be if you're WiWiWi. They've got to get a pick, and it's got to be clean. They can't have any more of these trade kills. They need to find a tangible and permanent advantage. 38 seconds until the next dragon, but that might be asking for a bit too much.
And we can see already Bobby on his second item has completed that collector, so this Misfortune is going to be chunking in these fights. If there is in fact a skirmish around the dragon, WiWiWi picking up that herald means that they can try to use it to pull pressure away from the bot side river. But honestly, with how strong SGR is currently, I feel like they aren't in a huge rush to actually answer that. They can continue to hold their position on this part of the map. They will surrender it a little bit though. Megs did go for the reset, and you can see Hazem is being bullied away from entering into that river. So it does mean WiWiWi for the time being have the ability to take control over here.
Yeah, it's an interesting point to reflect on with Bobby on the Misfortune. This is the first game where they've put Bobby on a champion that really doesn't need to carry for them to win, on more of a support, not supportive AD carry, but an AD carry that's just looking to put
just click R, bro. Yeah,
just AoE. Oh, and that was Spiraling Despair. Nope, it was another one of Hoi's identical looking abilities as Marcote sent
Mags
into Narnia. Mags taking a ton of damage. Scuttle Crab will give them vision for quite a bit longer. Has them still holding that flank position. Doesn't look like they're giving this dragon up. They have decent positioning. Hazem puts down that cannon barrage, but Marcote is so far forward. They will kick off the fight in the bullet time, doing so much damage on the front line. This is a very split fight. Night Ravens, though, holding so much aggro. Rainy Days can see there's 2 smites. It will go to Mags, and it is a dragon and a damn near ace for SGR.
And I mean, it was the bullet time dealing with the front line, and it was the Akali on the back line. You call it a split fight, Jack, but I think it's because SGR ripped WiWiWi in half. The Otacon next on the menu. Soul point acquired. This is such a clean game from SGR. They got punched in the mouth, and they locked in.
Yeah, it's almost like it reminded them where they are. They've been barely scraping by in those first 2 games, and then they actually end up losing, and it's like they all woke up and they're like, whoa, we're supposed to be the best team in the league, as now does look like a mistake in the making as Exodia caught out a little bit, but utilizes that shuriken flip, but the culling will just tear them down. Pengu was one of the best performers in the last game, gained our MVP. Gonna have to do a lot of work though in this game if they want to come back.
Especially without that flash. He burned it to try and, or not try, but succeed rather in getting the kill onto Exodia. So that means he is prime time target for SGR with all of the pick tools that they have, with all the burst that they are acquiring, with that Misfortune having those 2 lethality items in inventory. Pengu has to be especially careful in the next few minutes, as Otacon taken right off rip. Dragon not up for another 3.5 minutes. We're going to be entering a state of calmness, if you will, Jack, because no objective is really up to fight for. I think the big thing that SGR have to be worrying about is, hang on, I say that, never mind.
You gotta be worried about a massive flank from Poppy. The bullet time will come through and
holy
rip through
moly.
He's gonna die to minions on the backside, but Misfortune will die as well to Conceit. Night Ravens goes down on the collapse. So not a terrible outcome for a WiWiWi team that is extremely far behind. They do get the kill and shutdown onto Misfortune. Now they're trying to go for more, as the Spiraling Despair will come out onto the Leona. I think this turret is not going to go down. Wow. Actually, they're able to push them off, kill the minions, but they're still dealing with pressure. Mags in the jungle. Raptor will go down to Conceit, gets the smite. So now we just have a bit of a reset. Everyone's just trying to get their gold for this next fight, but a wrench thrown in by Rainy Days there.
Trying to take down this mid lane turret. I mean, that's what I was going to say that they needed to do before Rainy Days found his mark onto Bobby. They don't manage to do so. They do get a couple of kills in return, so they will get some more gold. And I mean, crucially, we haven't really talked about it for some reason, Jack, but we've been mentioning Bobby as the Fed member. Hasm is just casually 5-0-4, 2 items on the Gangplank, getting close to his third. He's got the accelerated gold with that plunder passive, so he is going to be hitting those item spikes a lot quicker than your average Gangplank.
Exactly, and now sitting in a lane where they can safely farm while not being out of position for the dragon as Rainy Days utilizing that Hex Flash once again to get out of a tough situation. And now I do feel it necessary to do my least favorite thing as a caster, and that's nitpick itemizations. Pengu is so necessary in this comeback as their damage threat. Goes for an early LDR, no armor built other than ninja tabbies for the opposing team. And I mean, this is a dangerous spot where obviously that's not a bad item, but you're preventing your item, you know, these spikes that need to come through on a champ like Lucian in this position. They've really got to be on point in these fights as Exodia maybe tries to find this angle. Nope, the minion wave is going to get there just in time and save Ratchet from any sort of shenanigans under their turret.
Yeah, Ratchet is trying his best to get some kind of a health chunk onto Exodia ahead of this dragon spawning, but I feel like all of that really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, Exodia can afford to be late to the objective, can afford not to have teleport. You've got those hex gates to be able to join the fray a lot quicker, so the tempo and the cross map really not as relevant as we have seen it be so far in this series. Is now dragon up in about 10 seconds. We are first to the river, trying to set up for some kind of an engage play, but pay attention to Hasm, this GP on the backside, and Rainy Days maybe the one to get aggressed onto.
Rainy Days has been hit by the Shuriken.
Oh!
Annihilated, gone in an instant, and they want more. Night Ravens will get tagged by that Solar Flare. Mags is hit by the Subjugate, so that is going to be a much less healthy Jarvan than usual, but it will fall off before the dragon fight truly takes off. Now push in the mid lane is the call for WiWiWi, but this is Dragon Soul. You can't just give this over for nothing. That all-seeing eye buys them a little bit of space. Flash forward with the Cataclysm. Exodia able to get behind them with the Hex Gate. As you mentioned, Bullet Time will take down Night Ravens, and it is just a slaughter. SGR putting all doubts to rest. They said the last games were Exodia gets exhausted.
Oh,
he doesn't give a damn. He's diving under the turret. Marcote will end up getting out alive, but oh my god, what a different game we are seeing here in game 4.
And they're going salt in the wound. You can see the BM from Megs as they're going to siege the mid lane tower. Rainy Days is on the backside, but what are you looking to get and engage onto? What creative angle do you have? Your team is dead. Your jungler is alone. He's not long for this world, and Conceit is taken down without a jungler to assist him. Rainy Days just cuts the wave a little bit, but that's not going to matter. Baron is up, and those waves that you tried to cut, they're about to wear some purple.
I mean, what a clean game in comparison.
Yeah, no kidding.
25-minute Dragon Soul. Every other game we've seen these Dragon Souls be so contested, game-breaking moments. And in the meantime, also, Rainy Days, you have Spellbook. You know that you can get Smite with that, right? Like, you could get Smite and use it, but not going to work as Exodia actually taking a ton of damage on the backside of this fight. Night Raven will go down, and the Bullet Time will take down Ratchet. Flash forward will get the kill onto Exodia, but now Pengu without Flash does not have the Relentless Pursuit up and available just yet. Smite will slow them down, and Mags holding on to that Flag and Drag until they see the dash come out. Knocks them back into Hasm, who just lights him on fire with his spatula and runs away. I mean, it's completely different from what we've seen previous. We've said it time and time again, but I think it's worth nailing down because every game has been so close, and then this one, it feels like there's not even a chance.
As maybe going to get aggressed onto, but does have the flash. He's gonna have to use it early though.
Does get out, also eats that orange.
There's no way, bro.
With the
oh my
fire.
god.
I mean, we talked about this champ being difficult to play, and I didn't see a ton of games on it, but certainly proving they know exactly how to play Gangplank.
And he also has the teleport. If you want to continue the pressure, you certainly have the ability to do so. But SGR have been collecting gold, and they've got a whole lot of it. They'll spend it all and will redeploy onto the map with their shiny new toys. And yeah, Jack, I mean, I feel like you put it pretty eloquently. The games have been back and forth. They have gotten twists and turns that have got us excited, preening to find out who is going to win this game. But there's no doubt about who's favored to win this one. SGR, 12,000, 14,000 gold ahead, and Night Ravens, 3 levels down, cannot stand to the might of Hasm Spatula. Ratchet gonna get taken down as well. WiWiWi Cats are dropping like flies, and SGR have a date with the top 4. It's only a matter of time.
The crying is no longer only in the name, it is now on the rift. The WiWiWi Cats, built from the bones of ADL champion true-minded gamers, about to say goodbye not only to the fall split but to the year 2025. Pengu dove in underneath the Nexus turrets, killed by the bullet time, which was not canceled in time by rainy days. It's clear skies on the victory of SGL. Exodia puts it all together with all of his appendages in the top jungle bot and support. The Nexus turrets being hit at this point. Ratchet did his best. The spiraling despair is countered by a sunny optimism of heading to the semi-finals. SGR, after a tumultuous 2025 of building higher and higher, will finally capitalize and continue their path to the AML championship.
WiWiWi Cats not able to find that game number 5 that we had been kind of building to. The possibility was there, obviously, after game number 4, but SGR shut that down instantly. The cleanest game of the night, Jack, to
You know, this is a great example of a term used in the NBA all the time of a gentleman's sweep, where you don't win the clean sweep, but you give them a game. And all of them back and forth. WiWiWi Cats did get a game, but at 12 minutes, you just see this game goes way downhill if you are a WiWiWi Cats fan. And even in this game, I feel like there weren't any performers who were just straight up like falling far behind, not playing well. But it just goes to show when you're playing up against a team that is undefeated in their match record, has only lost a single game throughout the course of the playoffs. That's only 3 games the course of the entire fall split. They also have a team comprised of players who've been playing with each other for multiple splits. It is not easy to knock this team off.
And I feel like really the bar for performance has been raised with Stasis Gaming Resurgence still in the AML. This is a team favored to win it all, a juggernaut in the Marauders League, and we got a first-hand look that they have not slowed down, they have not been stopped, they have not even been deterred. They will keep running over these teams if they are given the opportunity to do so. But the running stops here for the time being. They cross the finish line into the top 4, and we here on the broadcast cross the finish line of this series, going to 4 games. Thank you, Jack, for stepping in for Tokibi. Thank you, Caddy, on production. Last word goes to you, my friend.
Well, I get the last word of, well, twofold. First of all, I guess, make it quick. So thankful to be back in AML, where I got my start in the casting this year. So thankful to be back. Thankful to be casting with the incredible Quacks. And in an AML that has shifted so much. I mean, spoilers, the other undefeated team, Lane Zero Kumas, lost, got swept. So Stasis Gaming are now the favorites. And finally, I get to be the one to thank our lovely sponsors over at Zen Market. Remember, if you use promo code Aegis, that's AEGIS, you get 1,000 yen off your first international shipping fees, as well as using code Aegis25 off your first purchase for 25% off your first purchase. That's insane. Thank you, Zen Market. Thank you, Quacks. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great night.
Bro, just use Zen Market.